is a whole separate storm, Lenore, at around 422. So again, if it holds together that long, these storms have been spinning up fairly quickly and then falling apart almost as quickly. I'm going to switch over to the Doppler radar at the airport there, and it's kind of hard to tell the circulation there. It just looks so small on the radar. It's hard to tell exactly where it is based on the radar. It's really far from the radar signature right now, just looking at it from that radar. But you can see these bands of storms coming up from the southwest. The Storm Prediction Center has increased the risk for tornadoes to 10% now for our area. It's actually gone up. It's roughly doubled here in the last hour or so because we had some breaks in the clouds and the sun came out briefly. The ingredients are increasing for tornadic activity in our area, and this is just going to be the trend, I think, for the next several hours. Even in the Charlotte area, I know there hasn't been a lot of activity in the Charlotte area, but this is going to be going on through the evening hours. So this is going to continue to push off towards the north and west, and we'll see that continue moving into areas of Caldwell County. So make sure, if you have friends or family, to make sure you call and text them and let them know what's going on. This is that time of day where people may not be paying attention to what's going on and maybe having other things go on. So call them, text them if you get a chance. Let them know that there's a possible tornado near Lake Rotus right now, just northwest of Hickory, near North Lakes on 321, moving to the northwest at 30 miles per hour. So in that area, you need to seek shelter on the lowest level of your home, away from the exterior walls and windows. Put as many walls and windows between you and the outside. The best thing I can tell you to do is, if you have a closet, a pantry, half bath, even an interior hallway is better. You don't want to be near those outside walls. The lowest level of the house is important because you put walls between you and above and walls between you and the outside. So think of them as layers or shields to protect you from flying debris. That's why we want you in that small room, away from. If you have a helmet, get that bike helmet, skateboard helmet, hard hat. I'm telling you, any kind of helmet protecting your head is vital in these situations. And make sure your kids know this as well, because if you're in the path of this storm, you're going to want to seek shelter and have that helmet on. Now, I'm also going to point out a couple other things. There's another cell southwest of Statesville. These cells don't look impressive. This is not looking like your afternoon summer storms that we saw maybe over the weekend, but all of these storms have had indications of rotation. We've got a couple in Cleveland County, Gaston County, even some that were briefly in Mecklenburg County. And if you look at all these, they at times show weak rotation within them. So they don't look impressive on the radar from the bright reds and oranges and all the lightning that we normally see, but they're all showing signs of rotation. They're rotating more than just about any storms that we normally see. So here's the storm that we're warned for right now, which is basically just north of Lake Rotus near Granite Falls, just to the east of Granite Falls, heading towards areas in central part of Caldwell County. That's continuing to push off to the northwest at about 20 miles per hour. Spotters in the area have not reported anything on the ground just yet, but we have seen damage reported with previous tornadoes that have gone through this area. And this is not the only line. The reason we're kind of really getting prepared for this is that we're starting to see more tornado warnings to the south. We've got a couple down near the Columbia area, and as that line moves north, we're potentially going to see additional warnings. Now, we talked about the watch being expanded. It is now being expanded into Mecklenburg County. It hasn't filled in yet, but I can tell you Iredell, Mecklenburg, Rowan, Cabarrus, looks like Catawba, looks like all the counties in the Piedmont except for Lancaster are going to be added to this watch till 7 o'clock. The other thing that's happened within the last hour, that tornado risk has increased, and I'll show you where that bullseye is now, and look where it is. It's red, pretty much right over the heart of the Piedmont. So that's an increased risk for tornadoes. From a percentage standpoint, it went from a 5% chance of a tornado within 25 miles to a 10% chance. So it's doubled the risk of tornadoes here in the last hour as the ingredients have come together. And you're wondering why that has happened. Well, the wind shear associated with the remnants of Fred have all been there all day. But what's happened recently is the sun has come out in between these bands. So we've seen some instability build. You see that swirl associated with Fred back to the west. That's a really intense circulation with the system, and that's why we're seeing so much wind shear. So as this main line develops, you see this line extends, and this does have cloud to ground lightning in it, from about Asheville all the way back down to Savannah, Georgia. That line has its eyes set on the Piedmont. It's heading right in our direction. So be prepared over the next several hours. Even if it's completely dry over you, these storms are moving, they're not moving quickly, but the line is moving in fairly quickly and developing quickly. So we could see storms bubble up fairly quickly right on top of you, and you could get little warning that the cell goes from just developing to becoming tornado warned in a short period of time. So again, tornado warning in effect still for parts of Catawba County, though the storm has exited Catawba County, it's exited Alexander County, and it's out of Burke County. So this is primarily Caldwell County. So Caldwell County, this storm is now completely within the county lines, and it's moving basically east of Sawmills. Now it's kind of parallel 321 as it's traveling towards Oak Hill, Cedar Rock, eventually up towards the Yadkin Valley area. That's where we're seeing the storm kind of maintain itself as it's moving to the northeast. So the tornado watch has been expanded, as we talked about earlier, but we're likely going to see additional warnings here over the next hour or so as this storm continues to move in. Let me quickly check these other storms here. This is the one west of Statesville. Not a lot of rotation in that one. Let's check these other storms. Here's the storm near Cherville. Boy, this storm has got that shape to it. All of these storms have weak rotation. There's another one west of Shelby, and then we've got a couple in Gaston County. So got to watch all of these. And I know Bill and Vanessa are joining us on the set. We're about to start the 4 o'clock news here, but this could be a couple hours of tracking these storms, because every one of these that I start looking at starts showing potential of rotation. And one of the things, and I had someone on Twitter ask me, what's going on? Why is it getting worse? Well, the ingredients are coming together more so now than they were earlier. That sunshine, which didn't seem like a whole lot earlier. I know we've shown this a couple times. This is the visible satellite image. And if I were to pull up, let me see if I can pull up the Rock Hill camera for you. I'll quickly show you what it looks like down there, because we're starting to see the sun come out in many locations. I'm going to pull up the Rock Hill camera. Hopefully it pops up here. So you can see the dark clouds off towards the west, but we've seen some breaks in the clouds from time to time out there. And that's allowed for some sunshine to break out in a few spots. Let's go up to Lake Norman real quickly just to show you there. And you can see there's some dark clouds in the distance, but we've seen some breaks, and it hasn't taken a whole lot to cause these storms to perk up. So again, I know it doesn't seem like a lot of sun, but today's the kind of day where just a little bit of sun could cause some issues. So Bill and Vanessa, that tornado warning continues to the bottom of the hour. Even though it says 4 counties there, it's primarily in Caldwell County right now.
It's a good time to remind everybody, we're just coming on with the 4 o'clock news today. Brad, as you mentioned, we're under a tornado warning and watches for several different counties.
Yeah, we've been dealing with these actually throughout most of the afternoon.
It's about 12:30 this afternoon.
Yep, I know y'all have been in here. 4:30 is how long this particular tornado warning is set to last. As you can see on your screen, Alexander, Burke, Caldwell, and Catawba. But Brad, it sounded like you said it's already moved out of Catawba, out of Alexander. It's primarily within the boundaries of Caldwell, right?
Yeah, so it's mainly in Caldwell County. And a couple things, guys, I want to point out here. That storm, I don't want to discount because there's a warning there right now, but here's what we're doing. We're kind of keeping an eye on all of these storms. And guys, I don't know if you have the key wall punched up, but I'm going to jump over there in a second because I want to show you a couple things that are going on here. A couple things to notice. You see all these storms that have developed across the region. All of them have had these kind of curved shape to them. Notice down here and down here, they've got that arc shape to them, and all of those are showing signs of rotation. So it's not going to take long for these storms to kind of spin up and produce rotation. I'm going to grab our clicker here real quickly and walk back over. So I'm a little worried that we're going to see additional warnings issued with some of these cells, because as they develop, all of these are spinning up quickly. So even though we've got a warning right there, it's possible we could see additional warnings very quickly for some of these storms across the Piedmont as they continue to kind of spin up. So we're keeping an eye on all of them, just not the ones that are warned for, to trying to give you a heads up, because I'm going to go into Shelby, for instance. This one west of Shelby possibly could produce a tornado. And we've got possible tornado up near the Cherryville area, or rotation in that storm. I wouldn't say possible tornado, but those could possibly produce tornado with little or no warning. So we're watching all of those very carefully, because just like we saw with this recent warning, they go from these little cells to getting a tornado warning shortly. And then the main line is still back to the north, or the southwest, I should say, and it's moving northeast pretty quickly. So again, tornado warning currently for Caldwell County. You can see they just whittled it down to just a small section of Alexander and Caldwell, but the storm is primarily in Caldwell County, guys.
All right, so
It's been a busy day in Caldwell County.
Yeah, y'all were talking about that. I've been watching
It was
from
just
home
within
for a little bit.
Brad, an hour ago.
And, Brad was talking about, too, just keeping an eye on some of the potentials that could happen, because I saw y'all were covered in one near Statesville, right, where it was not radar warned, but it was a spotter who saw it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that one was interesting, because a spotter picked it up initially, started relaying information, and then it started showing up on radar. So that was totally spotter indicated initially, and that's really the only reason the warning was issued. Now, I want to give you an update on the tornado watch, because it's continuing to expand over time. You can see most of our area now under that watch. And honestly, as I was telling Bill earlier with our previous warning, just because you're not in the red area doesn't mean you're not in a threat. If you're within a county of that watch area, just treat it like you're under a watch. The weather does not stop at county lines. It doesn't stop at this line either that we arbitrarily drew here, but that is where the ingredients are favorable for in and around the watch area for tornadoes to develop. So you should always take these seriously, even if you're within a county or two of the watch area. So these tornado warnings are probably going to continue to pop up this evening as the ingredients increase. We've got a couple warnings, one up in Virginia, one here in North Carolina, and one in South Carolina. So at one point, we had 9 separate warnings in effect for our area, including the western part of South Carolina. So we've continued to see these warnings develop. Now, this storm, thankfully, has weakened quite a bit in Caldwell County, so I'm not overly concerned with this storm as much anymore. And so I'm starting to turn my focus to other storms. In fact, these in Gaston County and back in Cleveland County, all of these, we got to watch these carefully. And then the next line, boy, this stuff coming up from the Winsboro area near Chapin, right near Lake Murray. That one we've got to watch, because that storm has produced tornadoes all the way back into parts of Georgia.
Oh, wow. So we see this current warning in effect for Alexander Caldwell. We actually do have somebody from Alexander County on the phone with us right now. We have Doug Gillespie, who is the Director of Public Services for Alexander County. So Doug, we wanted to bring you in to have you talk about what you've been seeing out in your neck of the woods right now. How's it looking, Doug?
Well, right now we've got a little break in the rain, but we're still seeing some wind, and the central area where my office is located at, we're seeing some of the fire departments reported some wind. We're still seeing some debris falling in the areas where there was possibly a tornado earlier in the, I guess you'd say, the southeastern and the northeastern section of Alexander County. So we're just preparing our communications and everything, making sure everybody is taken care of and everybody stays safe as possible.
And right now, everyone is staying safe. Is that correct? We haven't had any reports of injuries or anything like that at this point?
No reports of injuries. Most of the damage we've seen when our staff was out was mostly trees and some in the roadway and power lines and possibly cable and phone lines.
Okay. Walk us through what some of your personnel are doing right now. Are they kind of stationed in different areas at this point, just sitting and waiting for any calls to come in? Do you have them strategically located at this point? What are your personnel doing?
Our office personnel is still in here, and we're ready to respond if needed, but we have a great group of our local volunteer fire departments and our local rescue squad. They've been standing by most of their areas, and so if we need to send them out or send any of our staff out, we are responding very quickly. We're keeping an eye on everything as it goes.
And I mean, speaking of responding, what could you impart to folks watching this at home, seeing this warning up about the importance of taking this seriously, trying to head off y'all having to respond to any calls of people getting hurt?
Most definitely. We need to always take a warning seriously. As it was just said earlier, the watch is not going to stop at the county line or anything like that. So if it's a warning out, take it very seriously. Try to shelter in house. If you live in a single wide, we've talked to our local fire departments. If you want to hang out there for a little bit during the watch, they're allowing that. We talked to our local newscast here, our radio station. Or, and my wife said, I'm just going to Walmart and do some shopping while this is going on because it's a safe place.
Doug,
so you can look at things like that.
Yeah, Doug, this underscores the importance of having a plan, a storm-ready plan that you can put into action when something like this happens. Maybe it's a place to meet up after the storm is over, should damage occur. But, these are things that people don't really realize until it's too late, because emergency services may not be there to help you right in the aftermath of a storm like this.
And that is correct, because we have to look at roadway damages to make sure we get there. We had a flooding incident a little over a year ago that we had a lot of road closures, and we had to find different routes. So, we look at the concept of it can take us a little bit longer, or it can take us a lot longer if we have to be careful and find the correct route. So most definitely. And that's storm ready. We do send out information, and there's information on the Alexander County website about storm readiness and how to participate at home and locations where you can go after an incident.
Oh, Brad's got some more
Brad,
information.
you got some questions?
Yeah, unfortunately, we got a new warning I got to pass along to you. We've got a new tornado warning for the upper part of Burke County, including Avery County. This is a small part of Mitchell and McDowell County. So this is a new tornado warning that was just issued. This is up until 5 p.m. So this is a new cell that is developed. I was watching it earlier. It was starting to get a little bit stronger here as it was moving out of upper part of Burke County. So this is near the Linville Gorge, and I'll show you where the circulation is. I can see it pretty clearly right on the radar here. So this circulation is right on the eastern rim of the Linville Gorge, and it's moving towards Jonas Ridge. So this is upper Burke County. This is a pretty rugged area up here. A lot of hikers in backcountry backpacking and camping there in the Linville Gorge. Hopefully they're getting these warnings. I know the cell coverage there is not great, but that rotation is right there. So that's a great overlook, Weisman's View. So it's just east of there, and that's right on the gorge. That's a beautiful area, but again, not great cell coverage up there. Hopefully they got this warning, because that is likely a tornado. It looks like it's just east of the rim of the gorge, and I'll turn off the radar just so you can see the gorge right there. You can see it kind of illuminated. The Linville Gorge is right here. It runs right down in here. So you see Weisman's View right there. So the gorge is here. The tornado is likely over in this area, moving to the northeast. So this is going to move through upper Burke County, and it's going to cross over the county line and go into Avery County. So you can see, even though the warning is up for those three counties, we're trying to kind of show you the actual county where the storm is located. So there's our two warnings, one till 4:30, one till 5 o'clock, but two separate storms. And again, these storms behind it, I can't emphasize enough that these could go severe and become tornadic in short order, because all of these, if I look at these storms back here, I see this little curvature to them, curvature to that one. Down to the south, we got another couple of these. So all these are showing that indication of weak rotation. And again, that just goes to show you the ingredients there, guys, that we have in the atmosphere right now are very susceptible to storms starting to rotate. So two warnings in effect now for parts of the foothills. This is pretty high terrain up there. That tornado warning for parts of Burke, McDowell, Mitchell, it's really upper Burke. As I say, it's basically 4 miles southeast of Linville Falls, and it's moving northwest a little bit quicker than the other ones at around 30 miles per hour. So potentially that one's the fastest moving storm. I also want to tell you that this storm, and remember that one I was talking about in Cleveland County? Mm-hmm. I just got a spotter report of a rotating wall cloud with that near Spindale and Lattimore. So that was the one in Cleveland County. Let me actually tell you the report. So this is 3 miles southwest of Spindale. So that's right on the Cleveland-Rutherford County line. That storm right there, when you see Ellenboro right there, that storm has had some rotation in it. So those storms, that's what I'm talking about. Underneath some of these, there's probably some spotters seeing some lowering of the cloud deck, and these are starting to rotate. But the two warnings currently in effect, primarily Burke, Avery, and Caldwell counties. The Burke County one is the more serious of the two, just based on the radar signature, but it's also in a much more desolate area. It's in parts of the the Linville Gorge area. So we're going to keep an eye on both of those storms, but I don't want to, I zoom in so closely, but I always zoom back out to keep an eye on these other storms because we've just seen them develop so quickly. Both of those are what we call radar indicated storms. I start including that information in our warning so you know the difference. Sometimes it's radar indicated, sometimes it's observed. And observed ones are much more serious because we have a confirmed tornado on the ground. The radar indicated ones mean that there's rotation showing up on the radar, but the radar beam could be at 5,000 feet or 4,000 feet, not at the ground. So that's why there's a difference. The warnings are issued regardless because that's the precursor to a tornado touching down to the ground.
All right, good to know. We want to quickly bring back in Doug Gillespie with Alexander County Director of Public Services here. Doug, just wanted to check back in with you. Sorry I had to put you on pause for just a moment as Brad brought us some new information here, a brand new tornado warning. But just wanted to see how things were going. Any new reports that you're getting out in Alexander right now?
No, we're still looking just a little overcast with some wind and no rain at this time. I just stepped out of my office and looked.
Okay,
Is
hopefully.
there anything you want to pass along to your viewers there, our viewers there?
No, if just to be safe and take cover if you see anything.
All right. Doug, thank you so much for your time. Hopefully it stays quiet for you going forward throughout the evening. But if not, hopefully we can check back in with you. We appreciate your time, Doug, once again.
Thank you.
Stay safe. You know, Brad, I mean, we got these two that are going right now. You keep checking in on other areas. I mean, it just seems like it can be hard to keep up with all the different potential spots.
Yeah, and that's why today in general, if you live anywhere in our viewing area, you got to be on guard today. Already have your plan in place. I thought it was a great question Bill asked earlier about, you know, having the plan in place to charge up the phone, make sure you have the app so you can watch our stream. But also, like what I would tell my family is get those helmets out, clean that place out in the closet, get ready because today's one of those rare days where we see quick spin up. So there's our one warning. That includes Avery, Burke, Caldwell, or excuse me, Mitchell and McDowell, but it's primarily Burke and Avery County. So I can even narrow it down further. The other warning has been whittled down a little bit. It's mainly Caldwell County. So now we can see just east of Lenoir, that one's traveling northwest. But as we've been alluding to, some of these other cells out there, all of them have had a history of showing brief rotation on radar. And it's just a matter of whether these storms put all the ingredients together and start to develop a tornado. So when I look at these storms, I'm going to do a quick little tour here. There's a storm up in Alexander County, okay? This one on Highway 90. This has got weak rotation in it. This storm near Claremont and Catawba, it's got weak rotation in it. This storm just near Pumpkin Center, it's got weak rotation in it. The one here just to the east of Falston, south of Toluca, and then Dora, it's got rotation, then Polkville. So all of those have some manner of brief rotation within them. And then we've got new storms developing from the southwest that we actually have tornado warnings down to our southwest and parts of South Carolina. So if you're in our area, you know, it's hard to tell you exactly the time these are going to be by you, but basically I can tell you the time the ingredients are in place. The ingredients are in place for tornadoes from now and until probably later tonight, maybe closer to 10 or 11. I will give you the all clear once I think we're all out of the woods from this, but right now we certainly are not going to be out of the woods until this whole system passes. And what we need to pass to our west is right there. That is the remnants of what was Tropical Storm Fred. It is now just a remnant low. It's moving off to the northeast at only about 35 to 40 miles per hour. So it's taking its sweet time moving through. And by the time it gets out of here, that probably will not be till after midnight tonight. So if I look at what's left of Fred, its movement, I didn't look at its forward movement here. It's moving only at 20 miles an hour. So it's, or 30, excuse me, now it's up to 30, that's good. So now it's got 30 mile per hour movement. That would help get it out here quicker, but that's still gonna be after midnight tonight. So we've got from now until about midnight that the ingredients will be in place for tornadic activity in the Carolinas. And don't forget, even after sunset tonight, this threat might not diminish. We saw tornadoes this morning before sunrise in most of the areas around Atlanta and in Georgia. And then we saw them into the morning hours, and then they really started cranking up this afternoon. The atmosphere is already amped up. That energy is not going to go away completely until later tonight.
We've got Trooper Swagger from the North Carolina Highway Patrol on the phone with us. We're about ready to hit the rush hour here. Trooper Swagger, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. What do you want to let everybody know? And where are you?
Hey, good afternoon. I am currently back in Catawba County. I spent most of my afternoon over in the Alexander County area dealing with the weather over there, and made my way back across Catawba and head over toward Caldwell at this point.
So you've been on the roads. What's it like out there?
We've had troopers who have been actively tracking these storms. We actually had a trooper who was watching the rotations and giving us play-by-play over the radio. So we've been actively involved in that and relaying that information to the National Weather Service. And the traffic conditions have been good during the storm. The most severe parts of the storm, folks have been taking your advice on air and staying off the highways during the worst parts of the storm.
Any advice you want to give people for the rush hour commute? I know that you're up in that neck of the woods.
Sure. Obviously keep an eye on the skies. Be tuning in on the radio, listening to the weather forecast. And as these warnings come out, then our advice would be to stay off the highways if at all possible in those areas of the warnings, because that obviously is the most dangerous times, and to seek shelter immediately inside of a good structure that would provide some protection.
All right, Trooper Swagger with the Highway Patrol, thanks for being on the phone with us. We appreciate it and giving us the update. Brad?
All right, guys, I know it seems like another warning has just been issued, but here we go again. We've got 3 tornado warnings currently. A new warning just issued for parts of Burke and Caldwell County. That's going to be the one in the middle of your screen. So this is a new storm, and this has actually got a pretty significant looking couplet to it, we call it. If you look in the middle of your screen, I'm actually going to draw where the rotation is showing up. It's near Brown Mountain Beach, near Collettsville. So right there is some strong rotation on radar. So the National Weather Service has issued a new tornado warning. So you can see we have 3 separate tornado warnings on the map right now, from west to east. The one to the west, that one is up until 5 o'clock. The one in the middle is until 5 o'clock, and the one to the east or to the right of your screen is until 4:30 this evening. Again, the same area, Burke, Caldwell, parts of Avery County. So 3 separate storms, 3 separate tornado warnings. In fact, this circulation is looking really impressive right now. I'm going to look at the Doppler velocities, and I'm looking at something called debris signature. So I'm looking to see if the radar is actually picking up debris. So I'm going to look at a couple different parameters here. There is some lowering in this area. Let me zoom in on this, and I'm going to show you the area. This is right around Collettsville, so just east of Brown Mountain Beach, and then this is Highway 90 that goes right through there. So that circulation is really strong. The other strong circulation is now near Linville Falls. This is really close to Grandfather Mountain. So this is just northwest of Jonas Ridge, heading into parts of Avery County. And then the other circulation is much weaker over there east of Lenoir. But let me show you this one more time before we go to Brandon here. There's the 3 warnings again: Burke, Caldwell, as well as parts of Avery County till 5 o'clock. I'm going to keep an eye on all 3 of these guys.
You know, you mentioned before we get to Brandon, I can see him there in the preview monitor. The sun's out, obviously, and that's just what you said would be not good.
Yeah, and sunset tonight, I have to check. Let's see, sunset tonight is at 8:09 p.m., so we still have plenty of time for things to heat up. It only takes about 15-20 minutes of sunshine to get the energy that we need to get these storms to spin up.
Wow. All right, let's go ahead and get over to Brandon Goldner, who's standing by in Alexander County. Brandon, you're getting to look at some of the damage out that way. What are you seeing?
Well, Vanessa, Bill, Brad, you guys were talking about the instability in the atmosphere. We were seeing that in the last 10 minutes. My photojournalist Deanna and I, we were out here. It was sunny out here. Then all of a sudden, we started having rain coming through the area, quickly getting our gear on. And then now it is sunny, and we're seeing some of the clouds out. This is some of the damage. It's mainly been, as you heard Doug Lesby saying, trees that have been coming down. The roadway over here, we are on and I'm blanking on the road right now, but we are in the eastern part of Alexander County near Stony Point. A lot of trees that have been coming down along the road. We saw DOT crews out here cleaning up some of these roadways earlier in the day. Take a look over there. This is kind of a northwest view. You have Caldwell and Burke County in that direction where you see the darkness in those clouds. Meanwhile, the sunniness over here, and we have just been seeing so much of these branches strewn on the ground. And we also had a family who got stranded briefly when their driveway was blocked by a tree coming down. We're going to step over here if that's all right. Down here, this is a mile-long driveway. The family told me that they were hunkered down when a tree, where all that debris is right down there, that's when a tree came down and blocked their driveway. It is tough to walk through because of how far their homes are from the road to the driveway. So we're going to keep on keeping an eye on what's been going on out here. We'll send it back to you all in the studio.
All right, Brandon, thank you so much.
Brad, interesting what you were saying about the sun doesn't need to be out all that long to create even more instability in the atmosphere, which is what's maybe kicking up some of these warnings.
Yeah, the fact that we're just getting some breaks at all, the atmosphere has got plenty of energy, and I want to show you that center storm because that's one of the strongest rotation couplets I've seen on the radar today, right there near Collegeville. And what I'm showing you here is the radar, the bright yellows and reds are winds going away from the radar, but you see the kind of, it looks gray, but that's actually winds coming towards the radar here. That's a pretty strong signature of rotation on the radar. And one of the other things we can look at, the dual pole radar can show sometimes debris, and what we're looking at in this graphic here is when you see the maroon shades, that's all rain. When we see the lighter shades here, that means we have raindrops which are different shapes and sizes. Well, they're typically not. Things that are different shapes and sizes are debris. So when you have a piece of wood or a leaf or something that's not equally the same size next to each other, we get lower values or lighter shades of red, eventually yellow. So that's what we call a CC lowering. So there's probably some debris picking up in this area. My guess, based on where it is, it might be leaves or parts of trees getting picked up. So the radar looks like it's actually detecting some type of debris in that area, but that's a really strong signature on the radar. And there's your three separate storms. We've got one to the west, which is the weaker one, or to the east, excuse me. The one to the west right here, that's the one that's moved into Avery County. You can see where that storm is. I can really dictate where they are better by looking at the velocity data. So there's rotation right there in that storm. We move down here, there's rotation right there in that storm. And let's move to the other storm. I don't see any rotation in that third storm. So the two areas of rotation, if we were to track both of those, I'll track this one first. This one is heading towards Blowing Rock and Grandfather, so that would be there around 4:50 to maybe 5 o'clock. And then I'll track this other one, which is now moving through parts of Avery County. It's heading towards the Tennessee line. That's going to be near Newland around 4:37, and then heading over into parts of possibly crossing the mountains completely. And we'll see if it makes it all the way over into parts of Tennessee. But this will dispel the myth that the mountains sometimes protect you from tornadoes. That's just not the case. When tornadoes form, especially in lower elevations and move upslope, they actually tend to produce more tornadoes. So this is actually a bad scenario where we have rotating storms moving into higher elevations. And because the elevation of these mountains does shoot up into the cloud, sometimes it actually can create more damage, because even if the rotation is off the surface, well, once it gets to the mountains, that surface becomes the ground, all the way down to the surface, because now the mountain is going up into the cloud. So those are our three warnings, all of them till 4:30 or 5 o'clock, which right now we're sitting at 4:25. So we'll likely see the warning on the right or the east side canceled out, and the other two warnings are going to become the predominant ones. And honestly, those are the ones that are definitely more severe. So I feel the one on the east side is probably the one we have the least to worry about right now.
You'd alluded to this earlier, Brad, about maybe folks being in some of those areas hiking.
Yeah.
I know for sure our family likes to go hiking around that Linville Gorge area. How do you recommend people get their weather information if they can't get a good cell phone signal out there?
So one thing you can do is always check the weather before you go, so you kind of know. But there are ways, even in the backcountry, that you can get some information. There are some satellite delivered information. There's also NOAA Weather Radio, which actually uses radio signals that will alert you. Now, it tends to overwarn, but you can get it because the signal gets in there. The other thing is text messaging sometimes can still work even if you have a very minimal signal, because the text message only works on the amount of information it takes to ping the tower. So I remember during several hurricanes having no cell service, but still being able to send text messages. So that's why sometimes Text messages takes a little packet of data. It doesn't take a really strong signal. So text messaging might be the best way. So sign up for some kind of text service or have a good friend that says, hey, I know Vanessa's in the gorge. I'm going to send her a text message right now to let her know there's storms coming in. So that is a good way to always kind of be prepared in the backcountry, because that is an area where there is not great cell service.
Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where do you put today's weather, Brad, in terms of severity?
The number of tornado warnings is pretty amazing. We don't normally see this many warnings, especially over such a long period of time. We started at like 11:30 this morning with tornado warnings. Here we are at 4:30. We still got one, and I expect we'll see more. So to have the duration and coming at us in waves, usually it's like a one wave of storms and then we're done. The problem with the tropical system is you get those outer bands. Every outer band is like a separate wave, and they're like tentacles or basically spokes of a wheel that have to travel over you. So I expect we will see more. And just to give you an idea, I mean, we've got a tornado warning over near Lake Lure area. We've got a tornado warning down to our south near Chapin, near areas near Lake Murray. And now we've got a new severe thunderstorm warning up to so heads up in Chester County, because that storm is heading towards Chester County. And then we look back to the west, it looks like another line developing. So even though the tornado watch is up till 7 o'clock, I am not going to be shocked if we start to see that watch extended into later into the evening, maybe even 8 or 9 o'clock, that we could see that watch extended all the way back into the evening.
I mean, and that's just purely waiting for Fred to move past us, right?
Yeah, as long as Fred is, I like to say, you're in that east side, and you probably have heard this in Florida, they used to call it the dirty side of the storm.
Yep.
When you're on the right side, that's the dirty side of the storm. The clean side is the west side. So until we get away from that dirty side of the circulation, we're going to have the risk for tornadoes. And that's not going to happen until the storm is up in Virginia. So we need to, basically, if I turn on the visible satellite image, it's not too hard to see where the center of the circulation is. It's basically right there north of Atlanta. So until this circulation gets up here and we're away from that east side, we'll be more on the south side, will we be out of the woods? And I don't see that happening until, I hate to say this, but maybe 2 o'clock in the morning.
I'm surprised how organized this looks still.
Yeah, I think it's
over land.
It's really impressive. Now, there's dry air getting moved in here. Now, dry air weakens the tropical system, but the bad thing about the dry air, it caused the sun to come out in between the bands. So that's actually been, a negative. Now, look at this thing. If I actually show you the radar, look at this band that has formed from almost Charlotte to Columbia.
Oh, wow.
That's got to move through here, and then we're getting new bands developing back here. So this band you see right here, this is actually big storms. There's lightning in there. So that's traveling north, and then looks like a new band trying to form right here. So these are like little tentacles that are swinging around the east side. Look how dry the southwest side is. Once you get over here, everything starts to dry out. So, we talked a lot about the flood threat the next couple of days. Remember, why we're talking a lot about tornadoes right now, all of these bands are moving into the mountains. They're getting soaked with wave after wave after wave of rain. So we don't want to discount the fact that we still could see some significant flash flooding, because these are still producing rain as they're moving. They are producing tornadoes, but as they interact with the mountains, we're flooding these areas. Some of these areas in the southwest corner of the state have seen 15, 16 inches of rain in the last 24 hours. Some areas up near the Blowing Rock area are now approaching 7, 8 inches of rain. It's been kind of, down the Charlotte area, we've seen more scattered showers, but back in the mountains, this has been the real deal with the amount of heavy rain moving through the area. So let's go back to those warnings. They're getting ready to expire this one, which is basically the one that's, they just got rid of it completely. It looks like they basically whittled it down to 2, which is good news. So now we're down to 2. So Avery, Caldwell, Avery, Burke, Mitchell, both of these till 5 o'clock. Let's show you the circulation. Boy, this is Mortimer, this one has been really strong. This has been one of the stronger circulations. That looks more like the spring type thunderstorms we would see with the rotation there. And just real quickly, the velocities aren't going to jump off you. It's 51 miles an hour that direction, 11 that way. So we've got some what we call gate-to-gate shear there. We've got some different wind directions. That's pretty strong rotation. That's borderline EF1 tornado possibility within that line. So that one right there, that one's the stronger of the two. The one back towards Avery County is weakened quite a bit. We'll keep an eye on these other cells around the Charlotte area. Haven't seen anything spin up lately in the Charlotte area, which is good news. But we've got these storms down to the south, which are heading up, that are probably going to be the main culprit for the Charlotte area coming up here over the next couple of hours. So in the mountains and foothills, that's where we're seeing the primary issue. And real quickly, as I'm looking at this, we'll see if we can't bring up our Beach Mountain camera, which might have a view. Boy, they're just getting clobbered. You can't really see much of anything there. I'm trying to think if we have another view that would be a little bit further east of there that has a better view out towards east. Look at Banner Elk here real quickly as it loads up. Takes a second to connect. Well, we don't have that view right now. Downtown Banner Elk, we'll see if we got a view up there. So they're getting dumped on some heavy rain up in that area, but so far I haven't seen any circulation showing up on any of the cameras there. But we did earlier actually had one of the cameras up, the DOT cameras up near Statesville, caught that storm earlier today. So those storms are rotating into the mountains, but as we come back to the Piedmont, you can see the rain coming through the upstate. So this is for the Charlotte area in particular. This is the area we're going to watch right now. And KJ Jacobs, our meteorologist in the Chevy Storm Tracker, is down in the York County area where we're kind of waiting to see what happens with those storms as they come through the Midlands of South Carolina. Those storms were really severe earlier. Now KJ is down there. And KJ, what are you seeing as those that first batch of rain is heading towards the Rock Hill area?
That's right, Brad. We're in Rock Hill right now. We're about to hop on 77 South, and really what's happening is that we're just getting these little waves of showers coming through, and in between those showers we're catching that sunshine. And as you mentioned earlier, this is just adding fuel to the fire in terms of the intensity of what is still to come potentially in terms of these storms really starting to develop, looking at that tornado risk. And this afternoon, the tornado watch was extended for York and Chester counties until 7 p.m. Initially, they were not part of the watch area for tornadoes, but because we had that lull in activity for this particular area that did not see a whole lot of rain early on when we had those tornado warnings to our north. So I want to show you a look right now in the Chevy Storm Tracker here, and you can see we're now on 77 South, and we're headed southbound towards Chester and Chester County, and this is an indication of what is moving in our direction. You can almost see the raindrops hitting the windshield moving in our direction, but you can still see the sunshine. So certainly not a good situation there, because what's to our south is a severe thunderstorm, and they just had a tornado warning in the Columbia area, and that is moving in our direction. That same cell is still together. So give me just a second here. I'm going to pull up the radar, and yes, so we're in a batch of some steadier showers right now. That tornado warning did expire to our south, but we still have what could potentially be a severe thunderstorm as it makes its way in our area, which is about, let's see here, this storm here is just about 18 miles away from Chester, and it's in Fairfield County, and that's going to lift in. That's going to be some heavier showers, and just like the other cells that we've been tracking all morning into the afternoon, we're still looking for that potential for rotation with these cells, and that can still be the case because it does have a history of producing a tornado warning. Not sure if we had a confirmed tornado in the Columbia area, but that same cell is now lifting in, and so we are watching that line as it moves north and it moves into our area. So it may seem quiet where you are right now, but take the necessary steps to know where you would go in the event that you have that tornado warning where you are. And you certainly do not want to be in a car. And one thing I want to make note of, driving south right now, if you're going to be on I-77 headed south and you got a storm that is capable of producing a tornado, you'll likely run into rain and not even see the rotation, just because it could be what we see typically around here, rain-wrapped storms, and you won't be able to see it touching the ground. So that is something you want to watch out for. So if you can avoid just kind of getting out on the highway today if you don't have to, certainly something to take into consideration. So we're going to continue in the area, and we'll be here to give you a heads up in the event. We do have a tornado warning for York and Chester County, and also in Lancaster. So we're going to be on the South Carolina side with your coverage throughout afternoon and evening. I'll send it back to you guys. Reporting live in the Storm Tracker, meteorologist KJ Jacobs.
KJ, thank you. Stay safe out there as well. All right, so we see Brad shuffling around here on the radar. Anything new popping up?
Yeah, where KJ is an interesting area because that's the line that we've been watching all afternoon coming out of the upstate. Now, the good news is no tornado warnings currently with that line, but as KJ mentioned, we got a severe thunderstorm warning for Fairfield and Newberry counties. That is just south of the Chester County line. So that is a storm system we're going to have to watch. Our warnings still intact here until the top of the hour are basically for, I mean, it's almost out of Caldwell County. It's primarily Avery County. You know, it's been a while since I've seen a tornado warning in Avery County. Remember, a couple years ago, we had the first tornado warning since 1950 in Ashe County. I'd never seen one in Ashe County.
And why is that?
It's just rare to get tornado warnings in the mountains. They just don't pop up there quite as bit. Now, they do form quite a bit in the foothills, but into the mountainous area, it's a little bit more rare. But the fact that we're seeing the strong rotation persist into the mountains, and really this area right here on the county line, this is the Avery-Caldwell County line, not too far from Grandfather Mountain. Grandfather Mountain is basically right here. So Grandfather Mountain is in the middle of your screen. So this is on the eastern facing slopes of Grandfather Mountain. So if there's a tornado, it's moving upslope right there. But that's where that rotation is there, right in the middle of your screen. This other rotation is likely weakened. And because you're in mountainous, tree-lined area, there's no way anyone's seeing these up there. So don't even try to go out and see if you see something, because these are not going to be really visible. The visibility is going to be really poor. Down to the south, you can see a ton of flash flood warnings. You know, I think we've been talking about so many tornado warnings that we forget there's a lot of flooding going on in the southwest part of the state. Heavy rain falling around the Asheville area, and that whole band is going to be shifting to the east eventually. So our next threat is going to be coming into parts of Chester County. So I'm keeping an eye on the velocity here. We don't see anything rotating yet, though this area just to the southwest of Chester County, that's a storm that particularly was strong earlier, had some severe weather with it, had a tornado warning that could possibly produce another tornado warning. So we have to keep an eye on those storms as well. We're not out of the woods yet. Remember, we're all under a tornado watch. Now, a tornado watch means conditions are favorable for tornadoes to form in and around the watch area. So just because you're on the county line with that red doesn't mean you're out of the woods. We can get a tornado warning in and around the watch area. So that includes all the surrounding counties that aren't shaded in red. So even though you may be, like, say, in Lancaster County or Anson, Stanley, Chesterfield County, the storms aren't really going to stop at the county line. That's just an arbitrary look at where the watch is. And remember, you know, our watch versus warning graphic, I mean, we like to use cupcakes, but this is the best way I can get people to clearly understand watch and warning. We have people in our newsroom that still get these confused all the time. So a watch means you have the ingredients in place for a tornado to form. Once the tornado is formed, we've got a tornado warning. So that's the difference between a watch and a warning. We use the cupcakes analogies because who doesn't love cupcakes?
Well,
right?
It's a good analogy because so many times people just focus on the word tornado.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. And remember, watches are issued for big areas. The average watch is 25,000 square miles, so it takes up states and several counties. Warning is going to be like you're seeing with our purple warnings earlier. It takes up a small section of a county. A warning is going to look like this. It's going to be tiny. It's going to take up one little section of Caldwell and Avery County, whereas a watch is going to look like this. It's going to take up, you know, most of western North Carolina and South Carolina. And it's going to be up for hours. It's up till 7 o'clock. A warning's up for 30, maybe 45 minutes, guys.
All right, let's get out to our Brandon Goldner. Brandon's reporting in Alexander County this afternoon. So, Brandon, I see some flashing lights down there over your shoulder, so I would imagine some power crews showing up?
Yeah, Bill, so we have some power crews and tree crews that are all the way up ahead of us on the driveway. Lentz Road is really where we've been seeing a lot of the center of this damage in Alexander County. And just to show you as well, we can pan over here. We talk about a lot of times, you see with the traffic lights in person how big they are in person compared to when you see them above the air. These are some of the branches, and just this is my hand right here. Just look how big some of these branches are that come down. They look small when they're up in the air, but in person, these are heavy, wet things. And throughout the day, as we've been staying out here, we've heard branches continuing to come down. Just that impact from when we have the weather and just how wet the soil is, how wet the branches are. You still have that risk of branches coming down. We still have some of the branches littering the roads. We have cows over there that have been mooing this entire time. We're talking to some families out here, just talking about how frightening, especially for some of the kids, just hearing how much of the rain that's been coming down, especially the wind and how much it's been howling. Also been talking with some contacts in Caldwell County, particularly in Collettsville. They actually had to evacuate a campground overnight because of the water levels rising on Wilson Creek. There was only one camper out there, but they did move him. And according to Collettsville's fire chief, they're expecting that water level to rise once again at Wilson Creek, and they've been keeping an eye on that area, especially with the zero cell signal in some of those campgrounds, particularly along the Pisgah National Forest. Caldwell County also keeping an eye on some of the low-lying areas for any flooding concerns, but right now no serious issues that we have been hearing about just yet. It's really been, from what we've seen so far, the water levels rising in Caldwell County, here in Alexander County, those tree branches, those limbs that have been coming down, blocking roads. No major structures have been damaged. We've also have been seeing traffic lights that have been going out because of the power outages that have been happening, especially some of those major highways, 64, 16, those areas where we've been seeing cars that don't really know how to do those intersections when it comes to traffic lights that are fully out. You're supposed to treat them as a stop sign. We continue to see cars coming through here. We've been talking to some family members as well. I'm not sure if we have any of those sound bites queued up from some of those family members we've been talking about, just them talking about just how crazy it was listening to the wind howling and the weather coming through here. I think we do have a stop. We'll go to one of those right now.
When I got to my road, I was like, wow, kind of blown away. I didn't really expect it. Like, I can't even get down my driveway.
And Renee, she is a mother who, she was actually, this is the driveway, we'll show you right here. This is the driveway where she was at. Where all those branches are, that was actually a tree that was blocking that gravel driveway. Their home is about a mile down this gravel driveway. She says she heard about the storms while she was at work. She came back and we were actually pulling up as she was pulling up, at the same time, and she was stunned to see this tree just crashing down. We spoke to some of her children, and they are thankfully okay. We spoke to her mother, who was watching her kids and just talking about what she had to tell her kids. And if we have that queued up, she was telling her kids, trying to calm them down because they're young kids. They were nervous about what was going on, and she was, so we don't have that one yet. We may have that a little bit later, but she was telling them to, here's the cell phone. This is how you call 911 in case anything happens to me. And she was saying it was a little nerve-wracking for her, but she was calm throughout the time and trying to project that calm onto her grandchildren, because it is a scary thing just to see this happen. And just going back to where we're at right now, just that was a few hours ago, we're just seeing sunny skies right now, but a lot of clouds that have continued to come through here really quickly. We'll keep an eye out on everything out here. Just keep an eye out, especially if you're in Alexander County, just some of the branches that are still littering some of the roadways. We're live in Alexander County. Brandon Goldner, WCNC Charlotte. Send it back to you in the newsroom.
Brandon, thank you. Brad, anything changing?
Yeah, we do have some heavy rain, and one of the things, we talked a lot about, I think we were talking so much about the heavy rain the last couple of days, but we've got some really bad flooding going on around the Asheville area. The tornado warnings are popping up right now, but you see all those green outlines? Almost the entire area around Asheville is under a flash flood warning. There is some serious water going in there. We've got this incredible video out of Buncombe County, which is the county where Asheville is, and you can see how much water is up there. I've got a lot of friends and spotters over in that area as well that are telling me a lot of people are losing power, cell service is down. It sounds like it's a really bad situation over in Buncombe County with that heavy rain. That's probably the French Broad River might be cresting right now, because I see flood warnings along the river as well. It's been deceiving watching the radar the last couple of days. You don't realize how much rain is falling on that topography there. Lake Toxaway, which is one of the wettest spots in North Carolina, at one point yesterday, in about a 24-hour period, they had like 14 inches of rain.
Oh my goodness.
And so some of these areas are approaching a foot and a half of rain, and it's still raining there. So unfortunately, I feel like pictures like that are going to become more plentiful. And that same band of rain, believe it or not, is going to be moving over our mountainous areas. So upper Burke, Caldwell, Avery, Ashe, Watauga counties. Here's a view of the radar. Again, where we were looking right there with that flooding video was right there. Look at all those flood warnings. These bands of rain are all going back into the mountains. So the tornado warnings have kind of grabbed the headlines, but let's not forget there's going to be some serious flooding going on, and probably some rock slides and mudslides today. And also, it's not totally weather related, but we had a 2.7 magnitude earthquake north of Morganton today. And normally that would not be a big deal, except for it was shaking and it freaked people out. But that's going to loosen some soil or some rocks that are going to get rain on them tonight and today. So that could have contributed to a landslide and mudslide risk up in that area. So you don't often think we have a seismic event and a meteorological event, but they are a little bit of a crossover today.
That's amazing.
Yeah, well, no pun intended, but when it rains, it pours. You have an earthquake while you're getting hit with a tropical storm, or the remnants of it anyway.
You know, as Brad's talking about the flash flooding, I mean, great time to remind folks not to be driving through any roadways with standing water. You know, sometimes it's a lot deeper than what people think it is when they're just looking at it from
the reason
car.
we all talk about it so much is because people continue to do it.
Right.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, the problem is, you know, I've studied this a lot, because one of the things you study in weather is people as well. Sometimes people are willing to risk something because maybe their job is on the other side of that water, or their family is. So we often, I know sometimes it's easy to criticize people passing water, but we don't know what their reasoning is, that maybe there was something worth taking a risk, at least they thought was worth taking a risk. But we just don't want you to do that, because sometimes the road is completely washed out. The water's much deeper than you can experience.
We had a fatality just within the last couple of years here.
Yeah, and people
it was
going
in
around
Union
barricades.
County, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I think it was during Florence or Matthew. Someone actually drove around the barricade.
Yes.
And got swept away. So we just don't want, and especially as we get closer to sunset, as we start to lose some of the visibility, you're going to have a really tough time realizing that there's water on the road. Sometimes it just looks like a wet roadway, and then you realize that the road is flooded. So again, 2 tornado warnings continue, though the circulations have weakened. I can give you some good news there. Caldwell County, you're in the clear right now. I feel like I've said that a million times today, because I say right now because this storm is done, but doesn't mean we couldn't see another storm behind it, because at one point today, Alexander and Iredell County had 3 separate storms, almost the exact same spot. So for right now, Caldwell County and really Burke County is out of the woods. It's Avery County, but here comes the next line of storms. And for the Piedmont, including the southern Piedmont, the first storm that we have to watch is coming into Chester County. KJ was in the storm tracker heading south towards Chester County. He's probably going to be the closest to this one, because he was in Rock Hill traveling south on 77. So he's probably going to intercept this somewhere down in Chester County. But this is a cell that's moving towards the Piedmont. So here's York, Chester, Lancaster, Mecklenburg, and Union counties. The atmosphere here is still pretty unstable, guys. We had some sunshine today, and this would be an area where we'd have to watch potentially. And speaking of KJ, let's go to him in the Chevy Storm Tracker. And KJ, how far south have you gotten? And that storm heading your way, it looks like it really means business.
Brad, we're just north of Richburg, and we are headed south. We're about to hop back on 77 South, and we're going to head towards Richburg. But I want to show you something. Take a look at this quickly. Take a look at that. Notice that little break in the cloud cover. We've been talking about looking for that sunshine to come through, and this is only going to help aid in some of those clusters that are lifting into our area to intensify that much more, and that is something we want to be mindful of. But as we look at the road conditions right now, yeah, they're a little wet. The rain isn't coming down too heavy, and that could give some folks a false sense of security in terms of what is still to come, what that potential is. But as we move south on I-77, you know, traffic is not too heavy, the rain is not too heavy, but that could change at a moment's notice. It does not take long for these clusters to really build and dump a lot of rainfall, torrential rain. We've driven through some already today as we've been up and down 77, also on 85. But right now, traffic is moving along out of the metro headed southbound through South Carolina. Haven't seen any problems on the roads as well as we continue to look forward here. And you can see there a little bit of rain on the windshield, not too heavy as well. But as we move into Chester, yes, we are moving towards a severe thunderstorm. There's a severe thunderstorm warning that is just to our south. That's right there bordering Chester County as well as Fairfield County in South Carolina. So looking at some of the radar data right now behind the scenes, that rain is going to intensify a little bit more, and it's really going to move right overhead in Chester. I just want to time out those showers there. I would say about 5-mile radius around Chester here from the south. So that should be moving in about 15 minutes or so for folks in Chester. That is not going to be severe or super heavy, if I may, but the south end of that particular cell is where the strongest part of that storm is going to be, and that's well south of there, just north of I-26. So that is outside of our area, but still yet some of the same cells that have produced tornadoes in the past that have prompted that tornado warning, as we've looked earlier today near Statesville, also near Caldwell County up into Iredell County. Those same cells produce tornado warnings as they've moved up the road, so a little bit north of there. So if we're going to look at that same trend for today, I wouldn't be surprised if we get to Chester, get to Rock Hill, and points north of there along the state line, that we see some of these cells moving in from the south to have some sense of rotation with them, enough that it's going to give us that indication of a tornado. So that is something we'll have to be mindful of as we move in the next hour to 2 hours. Again, we know that tornado watch is still in effect until 7 p.m. and the atmosphere just hadn't been worked over a whole lot in areas that hadn't got a lot of rain today, haven't seen a lot of rainfall or cloud cover. So it is still an area that does have the potential, and that does include uptown areas to the south, York, Chester, Lancaster, Chesterfield counties. So if you haven't seen a lot in the way of showers and thunderstorms today, that potential still remains over the next couple of hours. In terms of what's happening on the roads, I'll switch it back over. Let's take a look at the roof cam here.
Oh, we lost KJ there, so hopefully it was just a cell service there. But where he's at is actually a spot that I've been watching carefully. So Richburg is right about here. He's on 77. I thought his pictures from the roof cam were really telling. We've had some breaks between these clouds, but that's the cell that we're watching carefully. And he was really right on with this storm, because it's moving into an area that has not really been what we call worked over. We haven't used up all the energy in this part of the area. So let's go right to the velocity data. And I don't see any circulation in there. The areas down in here that look like there was a little bit of rotation right there, but looks like it's all straight line winds right now. But it's moving into an area where he was just talking about. The visible satellite image kind of tells you the story here. You see the clouds here, but there are breaks in between. There's some sunshine breaking out, and the atmosphere over the Piedmont is really still ripe for severe storms to develop. So let's go up into the mountains and show you where those warnings are still in effect. Now, these warnings are technically up till 5 o'clock for Avery County, but you can see that the storm has pretty much moved out of the area. And so we can see that storm is kind of weakened. And now we're going to watch this next line coming up from the south. I did want to show you real quickly, we're still under that high risk for flash flooding today. Most of the western part of the mountains where we're seeing that flooding is in that area in pink, but the mountains and foothills still have the potential for that flash flooding. You see that area in pink, that's where we've seen some really bad flooding so far, but the red area in the mountains, that's still the higher risk, and then we're still in the medium risk. It's been scattered, there hasn't been a ton of rain, but if these lines of storms line up later this evening, that potentially is going to put us into some flash flooding. But also, the bigger story so far this afternoon for the Piedmont has been this. We got upgraded to a high risk for tornadoes. That means in this red area right here, Storm Prediction Center put us in the highest risk we see around here normally, around 10%. That might seem very high, but it was at 5%. So it roughly doubled to 10% today. That's a 10% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of any point on the map in the red area. That's pretty significant when you think on an average day, the chance of seeing the tornado is near 0. So it's 10% today. That's a big jump. And notice as that's all the way up into the mountains. For that reason, we've seen the whole area put under this tornado watch till 7 o'clock, and this will likely be expanded. Again, remember, these counties on the border, go ahead and treat it like you're under a tornado watch, because we often say if you're in and around the watch area, you're still under the threat for seeing isolated tornadoes. So we'll go back to the radar here and show you the movement of these lines. You can see the next lines. One's here, one's back here, and one's right here. And we talked about why this threat's going to be with us so long. And one of the reasons we're seeing this risk is we're on the northeast side of the circulation. The circulation is back behind me right here. I'll kind of get out of the way and show you. There's the circulation there. The northeast side is the most dangerous side of any tropical system because the forward movement is this direction, the counterclockwise wind is this direction, so that northeast corridor has a combination of the forward speed as well as the rotational speed combined, so the strongest wind and rotation occurs in the northeast quadrant. If you think about this thing moving, let's say it's moving 20 miles per hour and the winds in the storm are 50 miles per hour, well, you can roughly take 50-mile-per-hour winds, add on the 20-mile-per-hour forward motion, and the northeast quadrant could have 70-mile-per-hour winds because you have to combine those two motions. On the backside, you can remove 20 miles per hour, so the winds on the backside are sometimes only around 30 miles per hour. So that's the difference from the either side of the storm and why we have the stronger side of the system. So again, the reason we've been breaking in all day is for all these tornado warnings, but you see this line to the south, way down there near Orangeburg, there's another tornado warning. So this line here, you're probably like, Brad, why are you focusing down here? Because this whole line, as I sweep this a couple of times, I'll turn off the warnings here quickly just to get them out of the way, because this line right here is lining up and pivoting up into the Charlotte area. So we expect this line of storm. So as little weather as you may or may not have seen across the Piedmont, the worst of it is probably going to be with this line as it moves into the Charlotte area, the combination of a tornado threat, but also this line is going to have flash flooding in it because it's going to sit over us for a while. And there's a third line right in there that's trying to develop back towards the west. So until this whole line moves through, we're going to be under the threat for seeing an isolated tornado probably for the remainder of the evening. But again, there's our tornado warnings just to the northwest of us into the mountains, Avery County. These are up for a couple more minutes. I'm looking at my watch right now. 4:58 is the current time. Both of these will expire at 5 p.m., but look what's to the south. Right there, that storm. Let me stop this for a second because that looks like another tornadic cell developing near Lake James. So that's in McDowell County near Linville. So keep an eye on that cell. Also, keep an eye on this cell near Morganton. That's been kind of what we've been doing all day, is watching these new cells develop to the south, down near Rutherford County and Forest City. Boy, it looks like these storms are showing signs of rotation. And then down to the south. Luckily, no rotation on those yet, but don't be surprised if at the top of the hour we see some additional warnings issued for these cells as they continue to move off to the north and east. Remember, throughout the evening, we're pretty much now into the overnight hours. Make sure you're grabbing your cell phone, charging it fully tonight. Download the WCNC app. I just got a new warning as I'm talking to you right there. So we'll show you that new tornado warning. And it was the cell I was worried about right there near Lake James. That is a new warning for parts of Burke County, McDowell County, Mitchell County, and Yancey County. It's really right there. That was the cell that I just showed you a second ago, that rotation right there. So that is the new warning. That was the rotation right there. This is Lake James, beautiful Lake James, Linville Gorge right there. Another circulation on the south side of the Linville Gorge. So this is going to travel on the eastern side of the gorge and then up into Burke County. So again, this is a new warning as we go towards the top of the hour. This is up until 5:45 p.m. So right when we were getting out of that one warning, a new one is issued, and that's kind of the way the day has gone, as this storm is going to clip the northwest section of Burke County and move into Avery County. So here we are at the top of the news. We are going to see this warning stay up for about another 45 minutes, but it likely will not be the last warning we see this evening as we start to see these storms redevelop and move back into the mountains. Numerous storms still to our south, so we're not out of the woods yet. That severe thunderstorm warning for Newberry County until 5:15. That's one we'll have to watch as it moves towards areas of Chester County. So if you're just tuning in, top of the hour here, 5 o'clock. Latest tornado warning just issued northwest side of Lake James, traveling towards the Linville Gorge. I had someone on Twitter earlier said, when was the last time you've seen tornado warnings in Linville Gorge? It's been a while. It's been honest. I haven't seen many tornado warnings up in this area, especially Avery County, and now the second one today for parts of the Linville Gorge area. Typically, you're worried about flash flooding when you're hiking up here, and that's probably the biggest threat they're going to still have today. But the fact that we've got tornado warnings in that area, you also see the flash flood warning behind me as well for that same area. So big time flood threat continues as this heavy rain moves into the mountains and foothills, but that's the newest warning. I'm going to do a quick storm track on this just to give you an idea on where the circulation is moving. So it's generally moving in this direction. We'll put the cities up there. So, you know, moving over some small towns, Bakersfield at around 5:53, but lasts that long. Woodlawn 5:13, but it's moving northwest, heading up into parts of Avery County. This will be happening now, between now and about 5:45 or so. So even though the warning's up for 45 minutes, it's because it's got a lot of ways to go up into parts of Avery County. So just another warning moving into the area. And we shouldn't discount the fact that we've had so many flash flood warnings. Back towards the west, these flash flood warnings continue for our mountainous counties back to the west, but we haven't seen them issued to the east yet. So areas back into Cleveland County, maybe even Burke County, eventually we'll see some of these flood warnings start to be issued in many areas. I'm going to check with some of our spotters real quickly, guys, just to see what we're seeing up in that area. I haven't seen a lot of people show much damage up there. So this is up in the Banner Elk area. So this is the area where we're starting to see that tornado warning come through. So Banner Elk, you're actually under this warning. You probably should be seeking shelter right now. A lot of folks in the mountains aren't used to seeing tornado warnings, especially so many at a time. But the area like Banner Elk, we're seeing that flooding going on as well. Looking at what's going on up there, most of this threat for this is right around the Marion area and Lake James area. So again, we're right in here. Let me move the map. There is a lot going on. We've got flood warnings, tornado warnings. So there's Marion to the south. So Marion, you're just out of the woods here. Here's Lake James showing up nicely there. There's Linville, Glen Alpine. And again, this area right here, if I turn off the radar, I'll turn the radar off here in a second, you can see the Linville Gorge show up right there. So there's the Linville Gorge. That's the Linville River, which goes down the middle there. That's actually under a flood warning right now as well. That's the area where we're seeing the tornado warning. So the second time, and you can see the topography there, but we're also getting some cloud to ground lightning strikes. I get out of the way here. You can see we're getting some lightning strikes showing up there as well. So this is definitely a taller storm than what we've seen earlier today, potentially causing these storms to be a little bit more severe than what we had earlier. But that's the new tornado warning for that western section there of Burke County and really Avery County. Coming back to the Piedmont, again, this is just on the edge of our market, but on the southern part of our viewing area, a little bit more of a concern are these storms down here, which are about to move into our area over the next hour or so. If I loop this a couple of times, you could see the waves of thunderstorms, one there, one back here, and these are all kind of pivoting around. So potentially more severe weather. I wanted to show this earlier and kind of show you what the Futurecast looks like, because everyone's trying to plan what's going to happen this evening. So if we look at Futurecast as this unfolds, so we'll start this at 5 o'clock where we are right now, and I'll advance this till about 5 o'clock. You can see, or 11 o'clock tonight, you can see from 5 o'clock to 11, the two bands are still over us. There's one back to the west, one over the Piedmont, go till about 2:30. So if you're wondering when are we going to be totally in the clear, when this last batch swings through at around 2:30 in the morning, we should see the wind shift around, and that should dry things out across our area. Now, one of the parameters we can look at are rotation tracks. Where does the model think we're going to have rotating thunderstorms? So you start to see some of these rotation tracks showing up to the southwest, moving through the area, and a couple more all the way into the wee hours of the morning. So if you're wondering when things will be totally out of the woods, I think after 2 a.m., but right there, we see that rotation coming through between now and about 2 o'clock in the morning. And again, we have to wait for the remnants of Fred to totally get out of the area before we see everything in the clear. Now, this all started today. Remember, we had tornado warning pop up at 11:30 in the morning up in Alexander and parts of Iredell County from spotters, and that's really what prompted that first warning of the day. And our reporter's been kicking butt up there. Brandon Goldner, he's been up there chasing all this stuff, and he was up there first thing, and I know Brandon's up there right now. Brandon, where you at? You're back up in Alexander County. What kind of damage have you seen today? Because you've been like all over that area.
Hey, Brad, so we're in this area in Alexander County, the eastern part of Alexander County, Lentz Road, and we were just admiring for a second. We've been seeing all this damage right now, especially these trees, this kind of line of trees, and we've seen cows wandering over there. So that's what kind of got our attention for a sec. And you see right there, yep, another cow. Been kind of seeing this direction, kind of an easter way, northeastern kind of direction where we've been seeing this damage as these trees have been going down, and then it's been crossing the road over here. And then if we can pan right over here and then crossing through here, this kind of diagonal line of damage. But also wanted to show you, we're standing over what is Third Creek, and this runs along Statesville and goes into Statesville. Just look how much of the water has been just gushing through this creek. And this is just a creek. And when people ask a lot of times just how much, how does this affect me? How does all this in the mountains affect me? And as I'm about to get to my thought, we were talking about just the instability right now. It was sunny. Now we're starting to see it get cloudy and dark and the wind starting to pick up a little bit. But as I was saying, people are asking, why does this affect me up in the mountains? Remember, the Catawba River, the watershed, all that rain is going to come down through, and particularly the low-lying areas, Gaston County, Mecklenburg County. That's an area that is affected. But back up here in Lentz Road, this is video that we took earlier today when a family got stuck when this weather came through. Heavy bands of rain knocked down power to traffic lights on major roadways, and this family along Lentz Road, they were cut off along their mile driveway after a tree blocked them in. So we saw a mom as she was coming back from work. We happened to get here at the same time as she was shocked to see this large tree blocking her from being able to go and see her children and her mother who were stuck inside the house. We spoke to that grandmother. She was with the kids inside the house. She described those frightening minutes when the storms came through.
I mean, I wasn't nervous, but they were. I don't know. I guess because I'm older, I don't think about it. But they were nervous, and that was a little bit, I guess. But I knew what to do. I knew to get them somewhere safe and hunker down until it was over.
And that's the theme that we've been hearing a lot of, is having a plan in place. They had all sorts of cell phones ready to go to charge up in Caldwell County, which is about to the northwest of here. It's right over there. You're seeing some of those dark clouds that have been coming through. We've been hearing in Collettsville, they've been concerns about the Wilson Creek and flooding along there. They actually evacuated the campground there overnight. They said the water had come down, but Collettsville's fire chief told me that they're expecting the water to rise up once again. So that's something that they are also keeping an eye on, and we're starting to see again that instability around here, particularly Lentz Road, the center of where the suspected tornado has come through here, and just seeing all of this dark clouds that have been coming through here, and we're going to be keeping an eye on it as we're starting to see some of that instability, that sunshine poking through. Live in Alexander County, Brandon Goldner, WCNC Charlotte.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, it's incredible. We probably had at least 2, maybe 3 tornadoes touch down in that area. And we probably had a tornado touchdown in the Burke, Caldwell County area. We've got a couple spotters reporting some damage around the Valdez, Drexel area, also Collettsville, which is in parts of Caldwell County. Now, the new warning is here for the extreme northwest section of Burke County. Essentially, this is the Linville Gorge that is under this tornado warning and moving into Avery County. But I do want to pass along to our southwest. We're getting additional new tornado warnings for Anderson, Greenville, and Pickens County. And these are important because these storms are heading our way. So I'm watching these to our southwest because I know that same line of instability and shower and thunderstorm activities moving our way, as well as the storms to our south. All of this is rotating around the area. Now, I'm going to show you the storm reports today so far, because the area where Brandon was, this is where he was today. You could see the tornado, the first one of the day, touched down just to the west of Statesville, so somewhere right around western Iredell County. Then it moved up into Alexander County. So this is the area where Brandon is. But we did get a tornado touchdown in Olin, as well as down into the eastern sections of Iredell County. We've got confirmation of that because we have video and pictures literally right up next to it. So at least 2 tornadoes there. The other damage reports we had are up there in parts of Yadkin and parts of Wilkes County. So we know we had a tornado up here as well. That's the same cell, by the way, that tracked 2 of them like this. The video was just compelling today to see all of the reports of tornadoes up here. I mean, we probably had 10, 15 different views of this tornado. In fact, I know the guys have this keyed up in there, but just to show you
got a tornado
from earlier today, I mean, look at that. You could see the tornado right in the middle of the screen, and look how low the cloud base was. Almost the whole cloud base is touching the ground. But that was the tornado, that the first one of the day, that touched down basically in western Iredell County into parts of Alexander County. Now that's the exact storm that caused the damage that Brandon just showed you. And then the additional video we have was from another storm that was in the eastern part of the county. So we had another storm in the eastern part of Iredell County, kind of near the Olin area. Beautiful area of Iredell County, nice rolling hills, a lot of farmland. So we had some pretty clear views of that up there. But you can see that we've had several tornadoes touch down today. So every one of these warnings we get, like the one currently for parts of Avery County, that's why we're taking these so seriously, because we've had a history of these storms producing flash flooding as well as tornadoes. And speaking of the flash flooding, just to show you how bad the flooding has been to our west. I know it seems like, hey, Brad, you're talking about all this rain. It hasn't rained much in Charlotte today, but I thought Brandon brought up a good point. All this water upstream is going to come downstream. All these rivers drain to the southeast. So the Catawba Basin, as well as the PD and some of these other basins, that water eventually all comes out of our western part of the state, moves down through the central part of South Carolina and North Carolina and into areas down towards the low country and eventually all the way down to the Atlantic. So that water is all going to go downstream. So while it may not be flooding where you are right now, we could see some additional flooding. And look at the tornado warnings beginning to pop up with this third line down in the upstate of South Carolina. So we're not out of the woods yet for any of these storms as we move through the evening. Again, that tornado watch currently up until 7 o'clock. I have a sneaky suspicion we're going to see this extended later into the evening. If we show you that tornado watch, this is currently where it stands until 7 o'clock. And again, remember, all the counties surrounding us, go ahead, treat this like a tornado watch as well, because if you're in or near the watch area, the ingredients don't change all that much. But this is until 7 o'clock. You can see above my head there, but we're likely going to see this extended, because I expect we're going to see a lot of this probably going all the way until probably 9 o'clock tonight, maybe even later tonight. So potentially we have, potentially some severe weather through the overnight hours. We've had some landslides, some mudslides in some parts of the area. I'm not exactly sure where this was. I didn't hear where the video's from, but we had some pictures of a mudslide, I believe, back into the mountains and foothills. But this is the kind of damage we would expect. So this is in Canton. So this is in the western part of the state. This is just west of Asheville. So you can see that retaining wall collapsed there. And with the amount of rain we're seeing in the mountains, I would anticipate we're going to see more of this into the overnight hours. Because remember, as much as we're talking about the tornado threat, which is the most immediate threat now, it's still pouring. All of the storms that are producing tornadoes right now, or possible tornadoes, are also producing extremely heavy rain, and all of this is pivoting back into the mountains. So every time I loop this, the first thing I see is like wave after wave of rain, almost like fire hoses going back here. You see all this green here? Those are flash flood warnings. I mean, all of the Asheville area, upstate, all the way Black Mountain, an area that's very susceptible, Marion, over there towards McDowell County. These areas flood really easily, and in some locations, they're not measuring the rain in inches in the last 24 to 36 hours, measuring in feet. There's several locations that have gone over a foot and a half of rainfall in the past 36 hours. So we'll keep an eye on the tornadoes, but we can't discount the fact that we've got this flood threat continuing. You can see the update to the tornado warning, kind of whittling it down just a little bit. Really the western sections of Avery County, and honestly the storm itself is just outside of Avery County, so the Avery County's in it, but there's the circulation right there near the Grassy Creek area. I'll zoom in on it real quickly here and we'll show you the velocity data. So there it is, there's the circulation just southeast of Grassy Creek, just to the northwest of the North Cove area. There's the circulation right there. So this is the Linville Gorge. You can see it right over here. Wiseman's View, great overlook there. Beautiful views up here. Normally probably totally clouded in now with the clouds, rain, and fog, and possibly a tornado. on the western side of the gorge now, moving up into parts of Mitchell County as well as parts of Avery County and Yancey County. So it's going to be up there in that western section. You see the big flood warnings going on in Yancey County. So those flood warnings, I think, are going to start expanding to the east. Also, look at the cells back here. These cells right here, I'm going to have to briefly turn off these warnings just so we can see. These are all showing signs. This little kidney bean shape to all of these, that's a sign that the storm is rotating, because you're getting the moisture to wrap around. The inflows coming in here. This is wrapping around as well, inflow coming in here. So these all could produce a tornado. Just look at the velocity data quickly here. Not much of a rotation in there. One cell to keep an eye on, and just a heads up here, Chester County, be on guard. There's a circulation right there. There's the Chester County line. That is a rotational couplet right there, west of Winnsboro. So that one's moving north. I'm going to turn the warnings back on because I suspect we're going to get a warning here pretty quickly if that continues. So no warning currently for this cell, but just a heads up. I'm gonna toss it over to you guys real quickly here, but this could be our next tornado warning as we go up into Chester County. I know KJ is down in that area right now.
Yeah, and so we'll check back in just a little bit. We wanted to bring folks this live look over. You could see Truist where the tarp is on the field right now. We just got word of postponement for the Charlotte Knights game.
Yep, the Charlotte Knights scheduled to play Norfolk Tide this evening. The game has been postponed because of the inclement weather that we've been seeing. Those two teams scheduled to play a doubleheader tomorrow. At this point, game one starting at 5:30 p.m. Those gates will open at 5 p.m. Both games will be 7-inning contests.
You know, it was interesting. I saw when that camera was kind of panning around while we were getting that shot ready, you could see in the uptown area the sky. I mean, if you didn't know that this was all going on, all the severe weather, you might not know, but that's kind of a false sense of security if folks were looking at that shot, Brad. There you see it.
Yeah, and actually you could see the sun on the field. So there's sun in Uptown because there was a shadow being cast by part of the stadium there. And again, my concern right now, we've got one warning outside of our market and another one that's moving into our market. And the reason I'm watching this cell in particular right here, I want to show you Chester County. So Chester County is right in the middle of your screen. You see Richburg up here. And we're going to go down there in a second because our KJ Jacobs is down there in the Chevy Storm Tracker. But the reason I'm watching this cell very carefully, I want you to show you something on the radar here. So if I look at the radar, see this right here, these really bright returns? Those are winds going this direction. These are winds going away. There is rotation right here south of the county line. And if I track that into Chester County, whoops, I didn't mean to track it twice. We'll try them. I wanted to move the map a little bit and track it up into Chester County because this is going to be our next tornado warning, I have a feeling. At the very least, a severe thunderstorm warning. So heads up if you're in Woodward, Blackstock, Evans, and Chester, be on guard. We could see a tornado warning here momentarily, and that's the area where we're probably going to see a quick spin up. And that's where the Chevy Storm Tracker is right now. Our KJ Jacobs is down there. He was in Richburg earlier on I-77. Looks like, I'm looking at the video, it looks like he's pulled off the road there somewhere in Richburg. But KJ, where are you? And you're keeping an eye on that storm to your south. There is some rotation in it right now.
Thanks, Brad. Yes, so actually we are now in downtown Chester. I wanted to intercept that storm that is moving in from Fairfield County. And as we were looking at some of those storms on radar a few moments ago, as that storm was moving near Winnsboro, it did have that curvature that we've seen previously with these other cells. So that's why I wanted to come to this area, make sure everyone who's in Chester, you know, go ahead and get to your safe place. Take the WCNC app with you just so you can hear us and know what's going on around you in the event that we do have a tornado to touch down where you are. But right now we have a strong cell that is moving north into Chester. We are moving in the Chevy Storm Tracker through downtown Chester. I want to show you some visuals right now of downtown and just a little bit of light rain dotting the windshield here. The winds are really not strong at all. I'm not noticing any trees blowing around here through downtown. And really, and that's all what we've seen lately is that these storm clusters are just so tightly wound, and you know, that's when you're going to get that rotation. It's just really wrapped in very closely with the actual cell that is 2 hours south. So it is going to move into this area, and we're going to keep an eye on things here in Chester. But right now, this area really hadn't been touched a whole lot. We had a shower to move through about 10 to 15 minutes ago out ahead of the cell that is coming in now with the heaviest of that rainfall. So we'll keep an eye on things here in Chester. I want to show you some other views around. Last time I took the roof cam, you guys lost me, so we're going to try this one more time just so you can have some other.
So we lost you again there, but I do want to give KJ credit here because this is going to be a tornado warning, guys. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, if you're in Chester County, I'm going to want you to seek shelter right now in the path of the storm. KJ is in Chester. KJ, if you can hear me, make sure you guys are in a safe spot because that is a developing tornado right there on radar. And I would not be shocked if we get a warning here any minute out of that cell because it has got strong rotation. That's one of the stronger couplets we've seen, and it's close to the radar. Again, it's just south of the county line, so right in here is where the circulation is. You can see that big churning of the winds. The winds are coming like this right here. It is your classic, what we call rotational couplet on radar. In fact, I'm surprised we have not seen a warning yet. But there's the rotation showing up on radar right there, and that's moving up into parts of Chester County. So this is going to be a warning here shortly. KJ is in a good position to intercept this storm as it's moving up towards the Chester area. I'm going to do a track on it because these are the people that are in the path of that rotation. I would go ahead, even before the warning's issued, go ahead. If you live in any of those towns, go ahead, get towards the middle of the house, keep the phone with you. You can stream us on our app. Keep an eye on us. We'll let you know when to give the all clear, but that storm potentially has a tornado in it if it did not already produce a tornado down to the south. Now, we know we've seen several tornadoes today in the northern sections of our viewing area, Iredell and Alexander County. So this is the video that we saw from the Union Grove area, which is in northern Iredell County. And look at that. That's a legit, almost a wedge type tornado. And this one, a lot of people out looking at it from a distance here. You can see it down to the ground there, and there was some damage reported in that area. There's several pieces of video that look like this afternoon, but clearly that was definitely one of the tornadoes, or at least the one that was warned for. The damage reports from that area were a little more sparse. We probably just saw a little bit of tree damage with that, but that storm in particular definitely had at least one tornado with it, maybe multiple tornadoes with us this morning between about 11:30, I'd say this morning, started 11:30, really went to early afternoon till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But I want you to look at this line back in the upstate that has got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 tornado warnings with it now. So, you know, these several lines have got to move through the evening hours. And I still don't want to let our guard down on this storm because just looking at it right now, I mean, the potential that this thing's got a quick spin up in it. One of the things I'll look at often when I see these spin up to sea lowering, you see these lighter shades here. Ew, that's a sign that there's something being lofted other than raindrops. Rain is going to show up all as purple. When you see these lighter shades, that means we've had particles that are two different shapes, and usually that means debris. So probably some leaves or something of that nature. We'll go back and forth between a couple different radars just to get a better look at that. So the radar out of Greenville's got a pretty good look at it, but let me real quickly take a look at the Columbia radar just to see if we got a better view of it. They got some de-aliasing problems there, which is just some radar issues. So you can see there is some rotation in that storm. It's definitely producing some rotation. So we'll have to see if this spins up in the next couple of minutes, but that's our next storm that we're going to be watching over the next couple of minutes as new tornado warnings are popping up to our southwest. Again, tornado warning for Avery County for a little bit longer, but that storm looks to be moving out of the area. So guys, we're going to keep an eye on this storm down in Chester County. That storm in particular is one we have to watch because I think that's going to be our next warning.
So something that, yeah, you're watching the radar. I wanted to ask about, you know, we've seen several warnings throughout the day, and I feel like some have been radar indicated, and then some have been spotter indicated. So is this one where, I mean, you've already made the call, you're telling folks to shelter now.
Yeah.
I mean, how common is it to get more of a spotter indicated warning than radar
Usually
indicated.
most of ours are radar indicated because the whole goal in this process, I mean, it's a little bit of a false alarm rate. I mean, I'll be honest with you, because we're looking for the precursors to a tornado. We don't want to warn you after the tornado's already formed. The point is to give you a heads up. So we're looking for rotation in the storm. Sometimes it happens in the mid-levels first. But what happened today is the radar wasn't seeing rotation because it was overshooting some of the storms. So spotters were seeing it first, like we're seeing from the video today in parts of Iredell and Alexander County. That's why we saw the warnings up there. But then, you know, in the last hour or so, we're seeing more of the radar indicated tornadoes because now we've kind of established, boy, the atmosphere is able to do this. So as a radar operator, somebody looking at the radar down in Greenville-Spartanburg who issues the warnings, they go, well, we're seeing the same type of signature with the same type of storm. We had obviously a confirmed spotting of one earlier. We're going to start warning for these other storms. And as I mentioned that, we've got a new warning. It's not the cell that I immediately thought, but it's one back to the west near parts of McDowell, Avery, Mitchell, and Yancey County. So kind of the same cluster back that way. That's the area that we're really watching for all other storms. But this one down in Chester County is one in particular. And our warning system will let you know. Like I put this on our warnings to specifically give you that information that'll show you. It'll say tornado warning. I'll tell you the source. Is it radar indicated or is it observed? Observed means somebody's actually saw it. And radars can confirm tornadoes as well, because if we do see debris on the radar then can confirm that there's a tornado on the ground. So there will be a confirmation process of radar observed, confirmed by tornado, or confirmed by observers. So some of the video from earlier today that we had up in the areas around Iredell and Alexander County were spotter indicated tornadoes first. And some of the first tweets I had sent to me from our spotters up there, Iredell Firewire, great spotter, said, hey, there's a tornado on the ground. Look at the storm on radar. Looks like there's some circulation there. No warning yet, but that observer helped get the warning issued. And then we saw additional storms that produced tornadoes up there. So, you know, we're getting a little bit of both today, Vanessa, but right now a lot of these are Doppler radar indicated, but the observers early in the day are helping to issue more of these warnings now because we know the environment is there for these to produce tornadoes. And again, that circulation is right there. It's about to cross the county line. So this is the Chester County line. There's our broad circulation right there, traveling north. Blackstock right there. This is 321 going up to Chester. And again, we're going to have a view of this here shortly because KJ is down there in the Chevy Storm Tracker in the city of Chester. So we're going to know shortly because he's going to be seeing the rain. And if there is a tornado on the ground, they should have a pretty good view of this coming up in a few minutes. And there's a new tornado warning issued to our north. We'll see where that one is. That's going to be in the mountains again. So another tornado warning issued. This is a new one for Burke and Caldwell counties. So this cluster up here in the mountains tend to produce quite a few tornadoes. So this is a new tornado warning. There's that circulation showing up right there. This is kind of on the county line again. So just to give you some heads up here, this is Avery County, the county line there. This is Caldwell County, and this is Burke County. So it's where the three counties come together. That's where the circulation is, right there in the middle of your screen. And again, that circulation is right there. It's a pretty mountainous area up there, but that's the circulation. You can see the hook kind of showing up right there. That's that little appendage right in that area. So again, you've been in shelter for a while up in this location. There's three separate warnings. 1, 2, 3 tornado warnings for this cluster. Upper Burke, Linville Gorge, third tornado warning of the day. Avery County, third tornado warning, and parts of Caldwell County, this is the second or third warning of the day. But we're also watching these cells coming up from the south because, I cannot believe there's not a tornado warning for that right there. That is a serious circulation right there. Let's go to KJ, if you can hear me. KJ, I know you're in the Chevy Storm Tracker. You're up here in Chester, so I'm going to move the map. KJ is here, and I don't know if you're watching this. I'm sure you are, but that circulation to your south is getting more intense and stronger by the minute. Okay, so he's not dialed in, so we don't have him, but there's the hook right there. And we're just going to stick with this for a couple volume scans here because I have a sneaky suspicion this will be our next warning right there. So let me put a track on that. We're going to go ahead and put a track on this because we're going to like I said earlier, I want you to treat this at home as if this is already a tornado warning because of what I'm seeing on the radar here. So Evans, Chester, 558, Knox, Richburg, 611, and then heading up towards areas towards Orlando. So that is likely going to be our next tornado warning right there. So KJ, I know you're back and dialed in. That circulation to your south is getting stronger. I hope you guys have a good place to be as this passes because the circulation is getting pretty intense.
Yes, Brad. So right now we're in the Chevy Storm Tracker east of downtown, and the rain is picking up a little bit more as we're seeing the leading edge of this cell move into downtown Chester. I just saw EMS rescue squad pass by as well. I am assuming that's not associated with any type of storm report as we see that. And really downtown, I'm going to switch it around here. We're at a traffic light, and you can see folks are just moving right along. If anyone is planning to head out here very soon, I encourage you to stay indoors. You can see the rain is picking up. We are seeing this cell just to the south of Chester, and it is moving in towards the north, even though the worst part of it is right there along the state line as Brad is looking at Doppler radar in studio. But we are going to continue to keep an eye on what's happening here in Chester as the conditions have certainly deteriorated over the last 15 minutes as we were just live here about 10-15 minutes ago, and it was just a little bit of rain dotting the windshield, but you can see the intensity of that rain is picking up. Not really seeing a whole lot in the way of the winds picking up just based on my observations here with the trees. But we are just traveling along here, and we'll pull over if necessary as I am following along here on radar in the event that we have to pull over. Reporting live in the Storm Tracker. We'll come back if we see anything that we need to share with you guys.
Safe out there because the area where KJ is, and just so you guys can see on the map here, he's on the west side of Chester, he said. The circulation is down here, so he's getting into the rain. This is traveling up in his direction. So let me quickly turn the radar back on. You could see, so he's getting into this section, so hopefully he can get a little farther west to get behind it. We don't want to core punch this thing, but that appendage right there, that's the classic hook echo. So we're seeing that little circulation coming out of this. This is the inflow notch. That's why that kidney bean shape, this is with some of the analysis you do while you watch the radar. That's what we're looking at. And then you can see the circulation in there. It's pretty broad. Every once in a while it spins up tighter. There's definitely a broader side to this system than the south side, but we've got some rotation there. It looks like the road, this is a Hallsville Road, or Halesville, in Ashford Road, where they kind of come together there, right at the county line. That seems to be the area where there's rotation in there. And then we've got our two tornado warnings. Avery County is getting it from all sides. They've got one coming in from the south, one exiting, but this new circulation in the Linville Gorge, the upper part of the gorge, now heading into Avery County. Let's go back and show you that circulation right there near Kewanna. That was right there where that circulation, there's Jonas Ridge back to the west. So the circulation has moved, now it looks like it's completely into Avery County. So it's always hard to tell because these counties all come together here. So when you see multiple counties, it's usually because it's for a section where the counties all cross over. So this is Avery County, this is Burke County, this is Caldwell County right there. So you're seeing kind of all the counties come together there. That's where you're seeing that circulation. So that's why you're seeing Burke, Caldwell, Avery. It's actually the corner of all three counties coming together there. And those are moving off in that direction, but you can see the warnings back in the upstate. We've got a warning down to the south near Orangeburg. And then this cell right here, which is still, I am shocked we have not seen a warning with this cell so far. I really think this is going to be the one that we're going to have to watch because eventually this storm would be continuing to move north, and that's going to head up into Chester and York County. Now, it's probably going to go through some cycling where it's going to show that tight rotation, it's going to dissipate, spin back up, but it's moving into an environment that is still going to be favorable for tornadic storms. So KJ is currently there in Chester. I can see his video on the south side of the south side of town where he started to see some heavy rain. He's getting into this northern section of the storm there. And that would be where we'd see the heaviest rain, but the rotation is on the south side of the storm near the Chester County line. Go back to the velocity data. So there's some rotation in there. That rotation is on Ashford Road right there. So what you're looking at, the top shows you the Doppler winds towards the radar. The radar's back in Greer, South Carolina. Really strong winds going this direction. In fact, let me plot the winds on there. I'll show you the winds, 56 miles per hour. And then down here, 1. So the winds are going this direction at 1, coming back this way, 56. So we've got rotation in there. That's pretty strong rotation in the lowest levels of the storm. So this is probably going to be, if it's not producing a tornado, it will shortly as it moves to the northeast. And it looks like it's moving about 25 miles per hour. But again, that's a lot of warnings, folks. You don't normally see this many warnings with this line. This first line, it looks like it's slightly weaker except for that storm, but you see that line back to the west. There's additional warnings. I'm gonna have to go back and add up all these warnings at some point today. This might be one of our top 5 days for number of warnings in our viewing area, because you just don't see this many, at least starting 11:30 in the morning, continuing. So there's our 3 warnings in the mountains, but obviously we're all watching this back. Now, on top of all this, we've got the flash flood risk. All of these storms, while they're producing tornadoes and they're getting the headlines, they're all producing rain, which is moving back into the mountains. And that's why we're seeing some of these flash flood warnings continuing back towards the west. So the tornado watch continues until 7 p.m. You see the county shaded in red, but honestly, any county bordering the red is technically going to have the same conditions. So we're probably going to see this continued until the evening hours, maybe 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. It wouldn't surprise me to see that continue. So I wouldn't be shocked to see it extended. And there's that tornado warning. Well, we got the tornado warning for Chester County that we've been kind of warning you about. Now it continues for York and Chester. So kind of expected. That was the storm we've been tracking. We told you to treat like a tornado warning because as I was showing you on the radar, there's clearly a tornado within that cell. So there's the rotation south of Chester. And guys, can we go back to KJ? Can we get him back up? Because he's now within this tornado warned cell for 2 reasons. I want to see what he's seeing, but I want to make sure he gets out of the way of this because they need to get west of here. So KJ, I don't know where you guys are, but you've got a tornado warning with that cell now, and hopefully you're getting west of it because it's heading right towards you.
Well, Brad, yeah, so we ended up going east of it, and as I was just looking at radar, I was telling the photographer, I was like, well, we decided to go east of it. We should have gone west of it. That way I could have gotten on the back side of it where it was a little bit drier and probably would have got a really nice picture of that rotation touching the ground. So we're going to continue going towards the east, and then once I can get out of an area that where there's some trees, and then I can look back, and that may give me an indication and perhaps even confirmation that there's some rotation touching the ground. But here's the view now from the Chevy Storm Tracker as we are between Chester and Richburg this afternoon, and we are keeping, and that is notifications across the board there. So the tornado warning,
wireless emergency alert. So you've probably experienced that at some point. That is not from our app or from any app. That's from the wireless carriers and the FCC. That's a government mandated alert. Remember, your cell phone is essentially a radio, so we have to send those out. Wireless alert. You can turn them off, but you got to go to your settings in your Android or iOS device. But if you're inside this polygon, really, I would say inside, if the cell phone tower you're hitting is inside this polygon, you're going to get what we call a WEA, W-E-A, stands for wireless emergency alert. And it will override your mute button and your silent button because it's a warning for a tornado. Government alerts as well, even terrorism alerts and stuff like that would come out over that as well. But that's good news. I'm glad to hear that KJ's going this way because 2 things when you storm chase, you don't want to core punch. You've got to go this way or this way to get ahead of the storm or behind the storm. So they're traveling east trying to get out of the way of this storm. Let me show you where the circulation is right now. So if they're traveling east back towards 77 towards Richburg, they are going to be out of the path of this, but that's the circulation right there southwest of Chester. So Chester, if you are in Chester, if you know anybody in Chester, if you have friends, family, colleagues, fellow church members, call them immediately. Tell them to please seek shelter. Lowest level of your home, Get away from those exterior walls and windows. Now, if you're in a mobile home and you have time, and this is really crucial, if you have time, get in your car and go to somebody's house, go to the gas station, the Walmart, the Food Line, whatever you can get to, and get to shelter. If you can't, even in a mobile home, your last ditch effort, get to the middle of the house, get as low as you can, protect your head. You got a helmet, you've got a pillow, you've got a hard hat, anything to protect your head. Remember, if you've ever done the tornado drills in school, we're protecting your head. 80% of the injuries in tornadoes, head trauma, broken bones, you get hit with stuff flies into you. So with head trauma is not what we want to see. This storm eventually is going to move north, going into York County. So York, you got some time, but it's a good idea to start getting that safe place together. So I'll do a track of that. There's the storm. Chester, you've got about 5 minutes to get out of the way of this thing or get to shelter. Next up is going to be Lowry's, 609, McConnell's, then Rock Hill. Now, this will probably be the west side of Rock Hill, but especially if you're on the west side of Rock Hill, you're probably going to start thinking about shelter. Then York, then Indian Hook, and then Fort Mill, which is going to be the west side of Fort Mill, and then Lake Wiley. Now, Lake Wiley, maybe even the west side of Pineville, depending on where it goes, because that storm is moving in that direction. Now, the farther out in the future, we're getting a little wider with the cone, so we're being a little bit overly cautious, but just a heads up, that's the area that we want you to take shelter from. This warning is up until 6:15. And we'll see if it lasts that long. I don't know. That's a pretty big warning because it should have been in effect earlier down here where we saw the rotation, but that's the hook showing up right there on the radar. I'll go back to the radar here. Okay, now the circulation looks weaker. So I can tell you that this is not quite as strong as it was earlier. I can look at the terminal velocity here as well. There is some weak rotation here. It's not nearly as strong. But here's the thing that happens with these storms. They cycle. They spin up, the storm will occlude, and a new one will form. And this can happen quite often in these storms. So that's why sometimes you leave the warning up even after it looks like it's weak, just to see if it's going to go through that cycle again, because that has happened, excuse me, quite a bit in some of these storms. Now remember, if you're in the path of this storm, the best thing you could do is find that lowest level of your house. You know, not all of us have basements. We don't all have basements. I don't have a basement, but I got the lowest floor. If you're on the second floor, get to the first floor. If you're on the third floor, get to the second floor, the first floor, the lowest floor you possibly can. Put yourself in this interior room. You see this room kind of flashing in green? It's a closet, a bathroom, a pantry, even an interior hallway, is many walls between you and the outside. The reason we want you to do that, twofold. The things are going to get picked up. Debris outside, parts of trees, parts of whatever, other houses, they're thrown around. These walls will block them. As many walls. If the first wall doesn't block it, the second one will. And above you, the lower levels, there's walls above you, floors and ceilings. They block it. And then last resort is protecting your head from that flying debris. So get as low as you can. Do that in the middle of your house. That's going to save your life. I've been to several tornado damage sites during surveys. Sometimes the only thing left is that closet, sometimes a bathroom. Bathrooms tend to do really well because the plumbing is all anchored into the slab or into the foundation, and that tends to keep the bathroom a little bit more intact. But you can see these waves of storms coming up from the south. So again, the tornado warning is currently in effect. We'll start in the mountains first. One for Avery, Burke, and Caldwell County. Another one for Avery County, but that storm is actually already out of the county. And then we go to the south, and this is the new warning. This is the first one in the Piedmont that we were worried about. This is the one for Chester County. That storm is right over Chester, traveling into York County. So as I'm watching you guys, I'm looking down at the bottom of the screen. Looks like the KJ is pulling into a gas station right now. They were in Chester. They were traveling east here in the Chevy Storm Tracker, trying to get out of the way of this storm, which is exactly what we want to do. Looks like they pulled and turned around and are looking back towards the west. So KJ, I don't know if you're dialed in right now. You guys can tell me if he's, okay. So KJ, I don't know where you guys are. I hope you're east. It looks like it's pretty clear where you are, and you're looking back to the west. Looks like the circulation's weakened now, but you're in a good spot. Tell me where you're at and what you're seeing.
So, yes, right now we're pulled over at a gas station here right off I-77, and you're absolutely correct. So we're looking back towards the west and looking in the direction of Chester and where we could have that where that tornado warning is located, and not sure if there's actual tornado touching the ground. It is radar indicated in terms of what we're seeing there in studio, but we are keeping an eye on the situation here, and of course we're going to head back that way once the worst part of it moves over Chester. We will certainly we're looking back towards the west right now from the Chevy Storm Tracker, and keeping an eye on that system that is moving over Chester right now. It is a tornado warned storm, so no confirmation of tornadoes actually touching down in downtown Chester, but the worst of that storm, the rotation that you all are seeing on radar just now with Brad, is right over Chester. So the worst of that storm is happening, so we encourage anyone in downtown Chester within maybe a 5 to 10 mile radius to get into your safe place and turn the TV up loud just so you can hear what's going on. Like we've heard all morning long, anyone who's been in a path of a tornado or where we've had confirmed tornadoes, they have explained that loud roaring freight train sound. I've grown up in the South, and I've heard that sound. I know what it sounds like. So if you're in Chester and you're hearing that sound, then chances are the tornado is touching down. But again, this is radar indicated. This tornado warning is in effect until about 6:15. So that's another 15 minutes. But we're going to monitor the situation from here, and then we're going to drive back into Chester in the event there's confirmation of a tornado. And then, of course, we'll have those images for you. But once again, it's just like rain here on I-77. As I was trying to explain earlier, the heaviest of the rainfall as well as the strongest winds are going to be concentrated near where that potential rotation is located. So you can see the difference from where we are as opposed to what's likely happening in downtown Chester, and then areas to the north of there like Lowry's will eventually pick up on that heavy rainfall as well. But I'm going to send it back over to Brad, who's in the studio and can give you a better picture of what's happening on radar. But right now we're going to hang out here for about 10 more minutes, and this is going to move rather quickly. With any tornado warning, it doesn't seem like they last too long, Brad.
Yeah, I can tell exactly where you are. So you're basically at I-77 at the BP right here, which I think is on the other side of the interstate, looking back towards Chester. And if you saw in KJ's picture, you could see some clearing down to the south. There's actually sun coming out. So you see that there's some breaks there. So the storm is moving this direction. Chester is right there. This is north, and this is south, because they're looking due west, and you see the backside of the storm. And I was actually kind of curious to see what the backside looked like, because we could have seen basically what the top of the anvil or the thunderstorm looks like. So the tornado would likely be right in this area. So what they're looking at right here, the backside of the storm, if there's a tornado, you're going to see it down here. It's on the southwest side of the storm. Thanks for punching that up, guys, because if I look at where that storm is, so I'm looking back to the southwest, here's Chester, and here, if there's a tornado, it's right here. So they're seeing the clearing down to the south. The circulation still looks like it's on the south side of Chester. I'm going to go between a couple of different sources here. Pop up the radar here real quick. So it looks like it's on the south side of Chester, and I think that's that area not too far from Chester State Park, is right in that area. So that's on the southwest side of town as you go out 72. Out this direction, so Chester State Park is right in that area. And then, you know, you've got 321, which comes around like this, becomes 72, and then they're on Highway 9, I believe, going all the way to Richburg. That's like the Richburg exit going over there. There's I think there's a big travel 77 truck stop there in that area right around the BP. So that's the area where KJ is right now. And that storm is moving north, so he's got a pretty good view of it. He's seen the backside of it already. This would head up into parts of York County. So let's do another track on this. Chester, you need to be on your shelter location. Southern part of Chester County, you're in the all clear as you're exiting, but this is moving through Chester right now. Lowry's and McConnell's, that's next. That's really in the past. So the 321 corridor here through Chester and York, that's where we're going to see this track and eventually up into York County. Remember, the sun has been out at times, and as I'm looking at KJ's shot, I can see the sun is out behind this one already. So these storms are pretty isolated, where you're seeing some breaks in the cloud cover, and the backside of this, we've already got sunshine out. So that next line is potentially going to have more fuel for the next line to move through. And you're saying, what line are you talking about? Look at this line back into the upstate of South Carolina. I'll move the map here. we've got a whole cluster of thunderstorms with tornadoes in them as well. New warnings popping up left and right. And then you've got the tornadoes in this first line, which broke up just a little bit as we went through the evening. So again, our most immediate threat is in York and Chester in the mountains. This threat is still there till 6:15, but the circulations have weakened quite a bit in these cells. The strongest circulation looks to be right there, right between, I'd say, just southwest of Jonas Ridge, kind of in the southwest corner of Avery County as you go heading over towards Yancey and Mitchell counties. So kind of exiting the area. So these warnings are up for a little bit longer till 6:15, but the circulation and the threat, the atmosphere up here has been worked over a little bit, we call it. Back down through the Piedmont, we'll look at the velocity data here just to keep an eye on these other storms. This one in Chester County, it looks like it's gone through its thing. I don't know if it's going to phase back up or kind of cycle, but it looks like it has weakened quite a bit, which is good news. But that was a storm. We likely had some tornado touching down right in this area, moving up towards the north and the west. So that warning is up until 6:15. Here we are at 5:50 in the evening. And kind of shocking, we haven't had another tornado warning in a while because we've had so many issued here this evening. So let me quickly check with the spotters, see what they're seeing out there. I'm not seeing anything that would indicate we've got damage on the ground because we're moving, this cell's moving through downtown Chester. So if there's something going on in Chester, we're going to start getting some reports from Chester County as it moves to the north. Now remember, the atmosphere is still pretty ripe for these tornadic storms, and look at these warnings. I mean, it is a rare day here, folks, to see this many tornado warnings in our area. This would classify as a tornado outbreak based on the number of storms we've seen develop. Just depends on how many end up actually being confirmed. We know we've got at least 2 because I got video and damage evidence up in Alexander and Avery County, and I do think we had a 3rd one touchdown in Burke County, maybe Caldwell County. This one we're not quite sure of yet because it's radar indicated, and I will always put that in the warnings here. You can see the source. Radar indicated means we're seeing rotation on the radar. We don't have ground truth to it just yet. We can get that from the radar if the radar detects debris, or if someone like KJ, who's out there trained in spotting it, detects that we actually have a tornado on the ground. And I look at looking down at the bottom, looks like KJ's heading back towards that storm right now, so we should get some ground truth here momentarily. So there's the circulation. Looks like it's passing just north of Chester right now, heading towards the north. So KJ, I know you're back up. It looks like you're on the good spot now. So I guess you're traveling on Highway 9, I guess, back towards Chester?
Brad, that's exactly right. Yes, we're headed back towards Chester on Highway 9 between Richburg and Chester. Since the worst of the storm is now above Chester, just north of town. So we're going to head back in that direction. As you've seen this storm sort of weaken on radars, we're kind of looking at and processing all of this data in real time. But I want to show you what we are seeing here in the Chevy Storm Tracker. Notice as we look off towards the west here, you can see the sun starting to peek back out. Just a few moments ago, it was a little bit dark and we had that sun on the back side of it. But as it continues to move off towards the north, we're seeing more and more sunlight. So we're going to be in downtown Chester in about 8 or 10 miles or so, and we'll have a better idea if we see damage, and that'll give us some confirmation if we did have a tornado to touch down. I know we looked at some of those signatures on radar that did give us some indication, and also we had a tornado warning in effect, and it is still in effect, and it'll extend all the way up into York County for at least the next 20 minutes. So of course we're monitoring the situation, and we're going to bring some of those live pictures to you as we're doing so right now. But notice this is on Highway 9. People are coming in and out of Chester, so it doesn't appear that obviously it's hard to tell and speculate from this vantage point, but we will know here momentarily if something did touch down, if there's any damage in Chester from this particular storm cell. But we're seeing cars coming out of there, so it doesn't indicate that there's any type of backup or slowdowns that would hinder travel on this particular road here. Meanwhile, we have just a little bit of light rain, and that rain is really concentrated near the center of that cell, which in just a few minutes that the signature we had an eye on and saw the identification that it could be some rotation, if I may, certainly is much weaker now, and it does not show those signatures that we've seen before. But I'm sure Brad is going to show you here, just on the west side of that cell, we're starting to see how that could be bowing out just a little bit, so it could be some strong winds as well. But I don't have that technology here on my phone. But we're going to keep an eye out on what's happening in Chester, and we're going to go into town here in a few minutes, and I'll show you guys as soon as we get there and give you another quick update. But for now, reporting live here in the Chevy Storm Tracker, I am meteorologist KJ Jacobs.
All right, KJ, thanks. You're in a really good spot in here, and I would always caution people, don't ever storm chase unless you know what you're doing. KJ, they did exactly what they should have done. They were ahead of the storm, went to the east or west. They're coming back on 9. They're going to be behind it. Now, one thing I will say that's interesting about this storm that I'm a little worried about is that there might be a reform of the circulation back up in this area. So we might be seeing a new circulation developing right in here. So that's something to keep an eye on, because it looks like there's a secondary circulation closer to the York County line. So I would be watching not only this area right here, but this area up in here towards Lowry. So there might be 2 separate circulation areas. Just to give you an update on the mountains, these storms are still producing heavy rain. I actually am really concerned about flash flooding right here right now, even though we still have the tornado risk here. The circulation, there's not much circulation in here. There's some wind, again, down towards areas not too far from Table Rock there in upper Burke County, just on the southern side of Linville, and also on the southwest side of the Linville Gorge. Who would have thought we've seen so many tornado warnings in Linville Gorge? But this is also a flash flood prone area. I mean, one of the dangers of hiking up here is flash flooding on the Linville River coming down the gorge. I mean, it's a very steep area, so you're going to see some flash flooding likely in that area. But that's where we have the tornado warnings. And then we have cells developing back here that right now don't have signs of rotation in them, but it doesn't mean they couldn't. And then the cell that KJ is on right now, it doesn't look nearly as strong. The rotation is much, much weaker than what we had earlier. But again, it's moving back into York County, which hasn't had many storms today. So the atmosphere has still got a lot of energy left over for it. So we're going to keep an eye on that storm as it moves to the north. That warning is up until 6:15. But just to give you a heads up on what we're watching for later this evening, I'm going to loop this. You see this line back here? These are all tornado warned back here. There's a new warning just came out. So this warning right here, you see Greenville, Lawrence, and Spartanburg. Okay, the trajectory on that means Cleveland County is an area we're going to have to watch for the next warning. So you kind of see the movement of this. If I were going to put a track on this, let me track this line off in this direction. Let me make sure I got the right speed on that. Make sure we put the speed on there. So that's the wrong speed, so discount that track. Had my old track on there. So that's moving about 30 miles an hour. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a track on this and kind of give you an idea on when that's going to be into the Piedmont. So that's a quick look. If you see it continue to move northeast, this will give you a good timeline. Now, is it going to still be producing tornadoes? This line is going to be near Charlotte, Fort Mill, Rock Hill, Gastonia, Pineville, 8 to 8:25. Gaffney around 6:45, Forest City 6:30. So that's just kind of give you that heads up ahead of time before that line gets in here. But that's going to be our next wave of storms we see. So Vanessa and Fred, we're going to keep an eye on these storms. This is likely going to be a long evening. We're not out of the woods yet. Current warning for York and Chester County is still up until 6:15.
Thank you very much, Brad. Now here at 6, we continue to track severe weather across the Charlotte viewing area. Right now, tornado warnings in effect for Caldwell, Avery, Burke in North Carolina, Chester and York counties in South Carolina. And check out this site. This is from earlier today in Iredell County.
We got a tornado.
My God. Oh my God, that is an actual tornado.
An actual tornado. This video sent in tonight from Old Mountain Road right near the Iredell-Alexander County line. A suspected tornado captured on camera by viewer Brandon Pope.
And Brad has been warning us of potential impacts from all of this rain. We've got some pictures to share out of Haywood County. This is near Asheville. You could see a rock wall that essentially just collapsed there into the roadway. The whole area experiencing severe flooding from these storms that are pushing through, causing landslides and flooding on the roadways. Worst of the damage, though, seems to be, at least for now, Alexander County. Storms taking down trees around Hiddenite and Stony Point. Fortunately, though, no injuries have been reported. We also want to show you this, another possible tornado touching down earlier today in the town of Olin, that's in Iredell County. Viewer Sandy Daniel sending this video to us, captured near Speak Road.
And we are not yet in the clear. Storms continue to move through the area. This is a live look right now at Uptown Charlotte from our camera atop the View building. A blanket of clouds hovering over the city at this hour. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Fred Shropshire.
And I'm Vanessa Rufus. Busy afternoon so far. So right away, we want to get straight to Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. So you're watching some tornado warnings right now. What's the latest?
Yeah, guys, I would love to tell you that the worst is over, but it might just still be yet to come for especially areas in the Piedmont that have not seen a lot of storms today. We've got one warning in effect right now. That includes parts of York County. So this is the York County warning till 6:15. Now, this storm has weakened. This is the good news. The storm is much weaker. There is some brief rotation in there, but that storm has actually weakened below what I would consider to be overly severe. But look at that next line of storms. And why is that next line of storms important? Well, I was just looking, as you guys were talking, I was chatting with the Weather Service and the Storm Prediction Center. This watch is up till 7 o'clock. There is going to be a new watch issued for our area. I'm not sure what the expiration time is going to be. I wouldn't be shocked if it says 2 a.m., but they're going to replace this tornado watch with a new watch. That's a 95% confidence level that that's going to happen here in probably the next hour or so. So we're going to see a new tornado watch issued for our area. And the reason why, I'll widen this out. You see the waves of rain heading our way. These are all tornado warnings. Got one down here, one close to home that's not as bad, but these have been pretty nasty storms. And then back into the mountains, we've had the two warnings that continue for parts of Avery, Burke, and Caldwell County. Now, what I want to show you is the threat going through the rest of the evening. Let me start with our Futurecast, because the Futurecast is going to tell you a lot. The waves of rain are going to continue to move through here over the next couple of hours. So this is 11 o'clock. Look at the line still over us, one line there. So 11 o'clock, let's go to 2:30 in the morning, still have this line of storms. So that watch that's coming out, I think it's going to be 2 or 3 in the morning that watch is going to be up, because that's probably by the time everything starts to move out of the area. The biggest risk, again, is going to be flash flooding still, because it will impact more people. You see the risk for flash flooding in red, extreme risk there, medium risk here, but something that happened this afternoon and why the threat's continuing into the evening, the risk for tornadoes has gone up. We've actually had this big area in red. This is a high risk for tornadoes, and a high risk by tornado standards is a 10% probability. That means a 10% chance of a tornado occurring within 25 miles of any point on that map. So that's why we're seeing the increased risk of tornadoes across the area. I'm looking at the environment over us right now. It's about as bad as it's been all day, believe it or not, from the ingredients standpoint. We've got tons of wind shear, tons of instability camped out right over us. So we are likely going to see additional warnings through the evening hours as these storms continue to move into that environment, which is sitting over us. So I'll go back to the radar and kind of show you the current warnings and show you what we're worried about this evening, because this line over us now is got the one warning with it right there, but this next line is going to be in here probably between 7 and 11 p.m. It looks like it should be here sooner, but as it moves towards the west or towards the east, it's kind of rotating more back into Fred, which the remnants are back there, and that's what's causing all this. If I widen it out here, I'll show you the remnants of Fred. There's Fred's rotation right there. It's moving up the spine of the mountains, basically right on the Tennessee-North Carolina border, moving in this direction. As long as you're on the east side or the bad side of the storm, these lines of storms all could produce tornadoes. We got to get to the south or southwest side, which doesn't happen until late tonight when the circulation is up in that area. So that's why the threat is going to continue for a while into the evening hours. So the tornado warning we have currently is down here in York County. Now, KJ Jacobs has been down there in Chester County. They're driving back towards Chester. The storm has actually got out of the way now. I'm curious to see, have you seen anything down there, KJ? I think we're going to go to the Chevy Storm Tracker here in a minute. But that storm is now all the way up in central York County. You're out of the warning now. Have you seen any reports or heard any damage in that area after the storm passed?
Brad, the only thing I've seen so far was a car that was down in the ditch and a police officer was nearby. Otherwise, I haven't seen any of the damage across in and around downtown Chester. We are driving right now in the Chevy Storm Tracker through downtown, and we've just crossed over downtown, headed west of town, and you can see off in the distance there, you can see daylight underneath the clouds. The clouds are still dark overhead, and notice the roads are wet from the rain that fell during that short time period that we were tracking that potential tornado. It doesn't appear that we have any damage based on my observations here. So likely we did not have a tornado to touchdown in Chester. However, we did have indication of rotation there on radar, enough to prompt that warning, and that storm, as you know, has since weakened significantly as it is approaching York and west of Rock Hill, and mainly it's just a line of showers there. But still yet, we are not out of the woods, and as we continue in Chester County, as well as in York County, Lancaster as well, there's a line of storms that are back to the west over to upstate from Greenville down into Greenwood and Lawrence. Those are all moving in this direction. And so we still have to consider what is to come as we go closer into the evening hours through the next 2 to 3 hours. And I agree with you, Brad, that the watch will likely be extended for the tornado potential through later this evening. But for right now, it does not appear that we have any type of damage in Chester at all, as we are traveling now on the west side of town, and we are going to eventually turn around, and we'll get into position for the next around the storms that will be moving into Chester County for tonight. So I want to show you a look right now at what is happening. Notice once again a little bit of rain here and there, but Chester, you are catching a break right now as we do have a good eye on what's happening on radar. And of course, in the event we have these storms happening late tonight, if you're one of those people who go to bed early, just have multiple ways of getting that notification, something that could wake you up if you end up going to bed early before this next line comes in, and it'll likely come in over the next 2 to 3 hours based on what we're seeing here on radar. So again, you're not out of the woods yet in Chester. We are watching these storms continuing to move in and lift towards the north. And this line here is really gonna pinwheel around and give us that potential. As you can see here, if I can just show you what's happening on my radar on my phone. Of course, Brad got the radar in the studio, so he'll give you a better indication of what's happening there. But my photographer and I, we're just moving right along here through Chester. And again, take a look at the current conditions right now. It's amazing how quickly the weather can take a turn. All of a sudden, you got a little bit of rain to come through, all is well. This could have obviously turned into a really bad situation if we actually had that tornado to touch down, and doesn't appear that was the case based on our observation. But what we're going to do, we're actually going to turn around here once we get to a point that we can turn around the Chevy Storm Tracker, and then we're going to survey other areas of Chester and go a little bit north of town just to see if we see any type of damage and any reports. But right now, looking at some of the data online and where we get some information based on storm reports, and I just don't see any indication that we have any storm reports right now in Chester County. As I pull this up, just bear with me very quickly as we look here. But I'm going to send it back in the studio. But We'll be back in just a little bit and give you another look at what's happening out and about, because I know it's tough to sit inside, but of course we encourage you to do so and just monitor the situation, because we still have that tornado for the rest of this evening and also that flood potential as well. Guys?
Better safe than sorry for sure. KJ, thanks for that view from where you are, but we're getting a different vantage point.
Really quickly, we want to get to Tanya Mendes, who is live in York County. Tanya, things are starting to pick up where you are.
Yeah, you know, Fred, don't let this sun deceive you, because we're watching it go in and out of behind clouds. You can see that the wind is definitely starting.
Wheel specialist Ryan is ready for duty.
My family put me through Wheel of Fortune training camp.
Good. Well, you better come through now. Will he earn his wheel stripes?
I hope to make them proud.
Tonight at 7:30 on WCNC Charlotte.
Now that school has started, and then we start to see the wind pick back up. Around me, though, if you can look, you can see that there's a little bit of a breeze in the trees. We can definitely feel the humidity rising. We've been watching birds that are flying in circular/erratic patterns around here. Now, we know that this cell that we're watching very closely, the one that was in Chester, was in southern York County, moving up towards central York County, so it's still a little bit south of us. We're not going to stand out here too long because we're standing outside in a tornado warning, but what we're seeing right now is definitely more clouds that are starting to move in and the wind that is starting to pick up, but nothing significant of note. We are watching it, though. We're going to take cover, and we'll bring you a report when it's safe to do so. That's the story from where we are in more of the northern part of York County. Reporting live, I'm Tanya Mendes, WCNC Charlotte.
Okay, Tanya, you and your crew stay safe. Thank you for that report.
Yeah, Brad, anything you're seeing different out there on the radar?
No, the good news is where Tanya is, I think they're going to be okay. That storm is weakened. In fact, even though there's a warning up till 6:15, that's probably going to just let it expire. Back into the mountains. Now, we do have some new issues in the mountains. We've got some tornado warnings, but we've also got a pretty significant flash flood warning now in effect for most of this area. So back into the mountains and foothills, the area it's just been getting clobbered. I mean, the flood threat has been kind of like put aside here for a second, but just to give you an idea, the flood risk up there continues through the evening hours. So I'm reading some of these flash flood warnings for Avery, Burke, Caldwell County till 10 o'clock tonight. Some of the reports that I'm getting, and I'm going to pull them up quickly because I'm looking at some of the gauges in Upper Burke and Caldwell County. So these are localized areas that have seen anywhere from 5 to 6 inches of rain in areas that are in the upper part of Burke and Caldwell. Now, Brandon talked about this earlier. These are the headwaters for a lot of creeks and streams that all flow down into the Catawba. So all this water is going into streams, and then a bigger stream, and then a river, and then down into our lakes. So huge flash flooding in these areas, including Blowing Rock, Banner Elk, Elk Park, Beach Mountain, Cross North, Sugar Mountain, Seven Devils, Blue Ridge Parkway, Linville Falls, Grandfather Mountain, Linville Falls, Grandfather State Park, Table Rock. I mean, all of those areas, they're getting a lot of runoff. We're likely going to see some debris flows, mudslides, landslides possible in this area as well, because if you look at the radar behind me, I'll loop this a couple of times, this rain is just piling up into these areas. So these upper Burke, Caldwell County, eastern facing slopes in Avery and Watauga County getting absolutely clobbered with heavy rain. Now, this all started today with these tornadoes that formed up in parts of Alexander and Iredell County. You see the reports. We had one tornado here, one confirmed tornado here. Our Brandon Goldner has been up there all day and he's been surveying the damage. He is close to this damage right here. And Brandon, I know you've seen quite a bit of damage to trees and power lines. Any structures damaged up there?
Well, Brad, we haven't been able to see any structures that have been seriously damaged. From what we have been hearing, from what we've been seeing, and from talking to people, it's mainly been trees that have been down. I want to show you first off, we have one gentleman right over here who's clearing some brush along the side of the road. Lentz Road, where we're at right now, this has been the area where we've really been seeing much of this damage of trees coming down and just debris all over the road. Just to show you a little bit, it looks so small up in the air, some of those branches, but just look how big some of this is, some of these branches. I'm going to show my hand for perspective, just how large these branches are, the thickness of them. We also spoke to a family, and if we have that video, if we can run it, we also spoke to a family who their driveway, it's a mile-long driveway to their house from Lentz Road. One second while it passes by. The family was in their home. It was a grandmother and her grandkids. The storm came through. She knew what to do. She had a plan in place. She had cell phones. She put her grandkids inside of a room that was tight and was a bathroom that she was able to keep them in, keep them nice and tight in there while the storm passed through. She said it was very loud howling winds. Listen to what she had to say just about the children and how she had to calm down her grandchildren, just the scariness of this.
I mean, I wasn't nervous, but they were. I don't know. I guess because I'm older, I don't think about it. But they were nervous, and that was a little bit, I guess. But I knew what to do. I knew to get them somewhere safe and hunker down until it was over.
And thankfully, they were all okay. No reports of injuries. Just a lot of what it is right now, and just really the instability of the atmosphere that you've been talking about, Brad, where it's been sunny at times, but then you have kind of this cloud cover that's been going through here, going in that northwest direction. We've had reports of flooding, particularly in Caldwell. Caldwell's fire chief telling me they're keeping a close eye of that flooding up there, and we're going to keep an eye as we continue to see conditions get a little bit unstable out here with the winds picking up and it getting a lot darker. Live in Alexander County, Brandon Goldner, WCNC Charlotte.
Thanks, Brandon. Good news. All the tornado warnings currently for our viewing area have expired, or the tornado warned storms have moved out. But before I leave you, I want to show you one thing real quickly. The flash flood risk is really increasing. You see the flash flood warning for Burke, Caldwell, Avery, and Mitchell counties. Now, I want to show you something. The rainfall amounts. These are the estimated rainfall from Doppler radar on the eastern facing slopes. Between 5 to 6 inches of rain has fallen in this area in about the last 24 hours, and it's still raining. This is really rugged terrain, so this is running off very quickly, and we've seen a lot of flooding starting to come out of western North Carolina in and around the Asheville area. I know near Canton we had a landslide occur where a wall broke loose. This is going to continue to be an issue through the evening, so while the tornado risk is by no means over because we've got another line to move through, we really need to be careful about the flash flood risk in the mountains. This is an area out of Buncombe County, so this is some flooding going on near the Slutter Branch there. This, I think, flows into the French Broad River. You can see how much water is there. And remember, all of this water's got to come downstream. So rain in the mountains eventually ends up down here in the Piedmont. So this water over the next several days will work its way down through the various chains of lakes, dams, and creeks and streams and rivers and get to the Charlotte area. So that's going to be an issue that we might be dealing with down the road. But flash flooding is going to be a big concern, I think, over the next 24 hours. Even after the rain stops, we'll have some runoff. So we still have some tornado warnings to our southwest. They're not in our market yet, but if you look at these carefully, look at the trajectory. Heads up, western York, Cleveland, and Burke County. You probably could still see these head your way, guys. We'll be right back after the break.
Hendrick, having your car serviced.